We have a major story tonight. This may have some historical significance. The Georgia DA published the indictments against Donald Trump while the grand jury is still in session. They have not convened yet. They have not come to determination. Yet somehow Reuters got a hold of the charges already. The assumption here is the DA in Georgia, obviously anti-Trump, already knows what they're charging him with, and the grand jury, for show. It's a trick. Now, many are calling for Trump to file a lawsuit, motion to dismiss, on constitutional grounds that this is, well, it's tainted. I mean, this is shocking. Earlier today, I tweeted out the story from Reuters. Breaking news. They're set to charge Trump. The documents have been released. And then shortly after, they removed those documents and said, whoops. But they're already planning on indicting him. We'll talk about that. We got a couple other stories. Joe Biden, when asked, while he's vacationing, mind you, during one of the greatest ecological disasters in this country's history, the wildfires in Maui, the worst fires in 100 years, he's asked, what do you have to say? And he says, no comment. He is completely abandoned the people of Maui. But don't worry. He'll go to Ukraine. He'll send them all your money. So we'll talk about that. Plus, we got some sillier news, too, I guess. Elon Musk apparently did he show up to Zuckerberg's house? Or knock, knock. He said he's going to show up to Zuckerberg's house. He wants to fight. All right, we'll talk about that. Before we get started, my friends, support the show over at castbrew.com by buying our coffee. We sponsor ourselves. We have a bunch of different sponsors. Most podcasts have sponsors. Cast Brew Coffee is our coffee company. We've got ground and whole bean, light, dark, and medium roasts. We have decaf. We also have K-Cups. And if you would like to honor the memory of Roberto Jr., who died suddenly last week of, we believe it was heart failure, then you can purchase Rise with Roberto Jr. and check out the commercial for Cast Brew, which has got I think it's like a 3.5 million views already. If you go to twitter.com/Timcast, I have it pinned to the top of my page. You can watch the commercial. We had a lot of fun making that. We'll be rolling that out soon. So again, castbrew.com, buy our coffee, support the show, or head over to timcast.com and click Join Us to become a member and support us directly. And you'll get access to our exclusive members-only uncensored show coming up at about 10 p.m. tonight. And if you've been a member for at least 6 months or you sign up at $25 per month level, you can submit questions and even call into the show to talk to us and our guest. So do that. And joining us, so smash the like button, subscribe to the channel, share the show with your friends. Joining us tonight to talk about this and a whole lot more is Joel W. Gibbons.
How y'all doing?
Who are you?
So I'm Joel Gibbons. I'm the host of Man vs. Street on YouTube, brought to you by the Daily Caller, and I interview people about cultural and political events happening in the world, and a couple jokes here and there too.
Right on. Well, thanks for hanging out. This should be a lot of fun. We also have Hannah Claire hanging out.
Hey, I'm Hannah Claire Brumlaw. I'm a writer for Timcast.com. I'm happy to be here.
Hi,
Ian's
everybody.
here too.
Yeah, I am. Thank you, Hannah Claire. Ian Crossland. What's up, everybody? Happy Monday night, middle of August, coming at you. How's Serge? What's happening, brother?
Hey, I'm Serge.com. Pleasure to see you guys, and let's just get in the show.
This is a huge story. I think when they look back on this period, this will be a key component of it. From Politico, Georgia court posts, then removes document detailing charges against Trump. The document, which Reuters first reported, came from the Fulton County Court, listed 12 felony counts and 1 serious felony count for violating Georgia's RICO Act. Here's the thing. The grand jury is still in. They haven't convened. How could they have these documents ready to go? They're suggesting that the Georgia DA planned to charge Trump regardless of what the grand jury actually did. Politico says the county court in Georgia, where Donald Trump is expected to be charged this week, briefly posted and quickly removed a document on Monday detailing several charges against the former president over his alleged election interference in the state in 2020. The document, which Reuters first reported came from the Fulton County Court, includes Trump's name and lists the case's status as open. It is dated August 14th and timestamped 12:39 p.m. The document lists 12 felony counts and a serious felony count for violating their RICO Act. This is crazy. I think we have the document right here. This is it. Case information, state of Georgia versus John Trump. You got the case number, the filing date. I'm just going to say this right now. If there is a filing date on a court document listing charges, I can say definitively they filed charges against Trump. Now, I think we can get semantic. or a bit pedantic and say, perhaps filing a charging document is different from literally bringing charges against Trump. But I think the fact that they did this is telling, and no one is going to trust them over this. They've pulled this document down. They're issuing no comment. So I don't know what to think about this, but it certainly seems, I don't know, man. I'm calling it seditious conspiracy. That they were working to take down Trump. The grand jury, which is supposed to be the normal process to bring about indictments, is meaningless, fake, and they were going to do this anyway because their real goal is to cheat in the 2024 election.
So just as the common man here, I just don't know the process very well, but a grand jury is going to get together and they're going to talk about what charges to bring. And then after they decide, they'll build a paper like what we have here, this case information document. But you're saying that the grand jury hadn't even decided yet and the document was already prepared.
The grand jury just finished hearing some testimony today. They're still in hearing evidence. So look, again, I'm not a lawyer. But what I'm seeing from a lot of high profile personalities and people who are literally lawyers is that it appears that they've filed charges against Trump with the grand jury still in session.
Well, the thing that's crazy to me about it is even if you're gonna indict Trump ultimately, if you're gonna do what you're doing, this seditious thing, you're trying to do this election interference as if this is what would it be? Why would you release this document and then pull it back? Why would you already mess up? Everybody doesn't believe you. Even more now when you come out and you do these things, and now you're gonna put out some kind of massive mess up like this.
It could be that they just want to be look how much control we have. They're just dangling it. They're you can't stop us.
You think they're just being arrogant?
I don't think they are, but that would be one possibility that they're yo, we're just gonna commit crimes in plain sight now, and you can't stop us.
I worked in politics. I don't think they're that smart, to be quite honest with you. If they had this plan, and they could have had this whole plan to, completely destroy Trump already, and they messed up. That's another thing that politicians do all the time. They mess up consistently. We see Biden do it pretty much every day. But I just don't understand why they would already release this and then pull it back.
I mean,
well, they screwed up, obviously.
It can't be out there. What I wonder is what Trump's legal team is going to do in response, right? Because to basically imply no matter what he is getting charged, really raises questions about due process. He's not even being indicted by a grand jury. He's being indicted by the lead prosecutor in Georgia, which is crazy.
Mike Cernovich said, Fulton County DA indicted Trump under Georgia's RICO law. Reuters obtained the documents. The grand jury is still meeting. The law isn't being followed. This is state-sponsored lynching. Mike's a lawyer. I mean, so I can only imagine he recognizes these documents, but perhaps there is some kind of argument. I'm trying to, be reasonable here. Maybe this is a list of potential charges that are being considered. I don't know. I don't know how they it seems if I was going to be nice to these people, which I absolutely would never be, they have a list of potential charges that they said whoops over and published.
Yeah, this is what we want to charge him with. Let's hope the grand jury goes for it. So we'll have the document ready to go. As soon as they say yes, then we'll publish it.
Well, either way, they probably, how we do these things, how I used to do these things, we'd write two things and be this is what is probably going to happen, and one of these two things might happen. Either way, they click that button first.
Yeah.
That was the first one they clicked. So no matter what they say, there's going to be a little edge to they think this indictment's coming in the way they think it's going to come.
But then Reuters blamed the Georgia court system. They said, "Oh, this document was up and then they took it down," and because this link you can see in the URL is a Reuters Foundation link. So they're saying it's not that we messed up as reporters; it's that the court messed up.
Are we not talking? I thought we were talking about the court system, trying to subvert him, not Reuters.
Correct. That's what I think.
I think both, right? If Reuters, who published the story first, is saying the court system had it up and then took it down. That's interesting because then Reuters knew to look for the document, which why would it be out if the jury hasn't convened?
That's a really good point. How did Reuters get tipped off the document was published unless it's possible that because the grand jury is in, they have a reporter just sitting there hitting refresh nonstop on this court listing page.
It's totally reasonable.
Well, they probably, I would assume they got a tip.
Well, no, Reuters actually, I could be totally wrong about this. It's been a very, very long time since I had anything ever to do with Reuters. This is 10 years ago when I knew a guy who worked there. My understanding is they actually archive and sell legal documents.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I mean, this might be right up their alley to say, hey, look, this document just dropped. And then GA was like, how did this get published? Whoops. Immediately took it down. Here's what I gotta say. If this document was just a legitimate document pertaining to the potential charges Trump is facing, they'd leave it up.
Yeah, there's nothing to be afraid of.
And they would just say, this is the list of charges that the grand jury is currently deliberating on. I think, look, man, I'm not giving these people the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
If you were to ask me what is the reasonable solution, the simple solution, Occam's razor, they pre-planned charging Trump a long time ago, and the grand jury doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
And Georgia, I feel like just has it out for Trump. Georgia's, I feel like, been the thorn in his side for so long. So I'm not really. That's the other The other cases seem a little bit more shallow too. This seems to be the big one. I think this is the one that people are really worried about. I think this is the case that could really like destroy it. Well, the fabric of the government as we kind of know it. But
Why do you think that?
it's just like this is the one that could put Trump in actual jail, right? That's what people have been telling me at least. But
Maybe,
what
but
do they think
it's not so much that this is the one that can put him in jail. It's that this is the one where there are zealous cult members who want to put him in jail regardless. D.C. is scared to remand Trump. New York is scared to remand Trump. The sheriff in Georgia already said he's getting that mugshot. Look, man, this is amazing. Republicans, there are conservative district attorneys all over the country. They do nothing. Yeah. And now you've got this novel reading of the law coming out of Georgia where they say, we are going to indict the former president and the current frontrunner for the Republican Party. And Republicans are going, oh, gee golly.
Yeah. And
just doing nothing.
And I think Georgia wants this more than anything else. They're one of the swing states. So Democrats in Georgia want Trump to be indicted there and solidly lock it down as a blue state for 2024.
the other thing that's interesting about this, and we were looking at the indictments, this is the fourth one, right? This is number 4.
Mm-hmm.
I think every time
it's the fourth jurisdiction to issue indictments. I think it's like the 78th or something.
Okay. So I think every time they've done this issuance, like I think every time he's fundraised, he's just lost money each time. So I'm wondering how much money he gets off of this one, and if like that really is like showing that his support's going to go down.
Well, it's an issue of how much money do people have. So it's not that people aren't supporting him anymore. It's that a guy who gets $100 a week in extra cash already gave it to Trump. Can't give it again.
Yeah, I think everyone has a limit in terms of what they can give in a political cycle, especially, a year and a half out from the election, or less than a year and a half at this point.
I mean, I think it's pretty obvious what they're doing. They're one, trying to remove Trump's name from the ballot, trying to put him in jail to stop him from running, and saddling him with so much legal debt and paperwork that he's unable to run anyway. This is cheating in an election, period. No question. Mm-hmm. You can remember this. I hope in 100 years, if they stumble upon this podcast, we said it. They're cheating. They are targeting the front runner for the Republican Party with the most support, who's set to win the primary in all of these ridiculous ways with charges that are clearly bunk, and they're trying to reframe and rewrite history to justify it.
Yeah. I mean, Trump's going to have to campaign completely around when he has court appearances, right? All of 2024, which is crazy to me. On the other hand, he has such strong support from his base that, like, if anyone could, it's Trump. It seems crazy that they're going to these lengths to sort of slow him down. But today, it seems farther than that. It's not just like meddling and trying to make it hard for him. It's they've actually decided that he is going to get indicted no matter what. And that should make all of the voters, of both parties in Georgia angry.
What do you guys think of this idea? So we threw this around the other day at my office. Biden washes Trump, what's it called? He pardons Trump. Trump loses all that momentum he gets from the indictments. All of a sudden, DeSantis is back in the game. What do you guys think about that? Like, if Biden decided that, but then he might be facing DeSantis, so it's a terrible move on his part. But like a curveball throwing in there, like what if he came out of nowhere, decided to pardon Trump, and all of a sudden Trump's dead in the water at that point? I feel like
I saw a video of DeSantis serving eggs to people and not making eye contact with anybody. Like he just looked like he was ashamed, and people were like, "I'm just here for the eggs." One guy, people do. That he already lost the race, in my opinion. I don't think he has any chance.
What is their campaign doing? That you're gonna go have him serve eggs after he's getting dogged all over the place. It doesn't make him look like a cool guy.
I know he should have been out touring like Ramaswamy's doing. Like he's doing the basement camp. I mean, it seems like he's doing a basement campaign. I haven't heard from him or seen.
I want to read this statement here. This is from Trump's lawyers. This was not a simple administrative mistake. Trump's attorneys, Drew Findling and Jennifer Little, said in a statement, a proposed indictment should only be in the hands of the district attorney's office, yet it somehow made its way to the clerk's office and was assigned a case number and a judge before the grand jury even deliberated.
Oh, okay. That's false then.
This is seditious conspiracy against the United States happening in your face in real time.
So do you file a lawsuit now against the district attorney?
File a lawsuit.
I know. Who files it?
And also, what court is going to give Trump a fair trial in this country? That's the real question, right? He can be indicted in any state. Obviously, Georgia has already made a decision about how they feel about him. Like, that's the problem.
It has a judge already.
That's why you have a federal government. So when states go rogue like this, you can take care of them.
unless it's a mafia cult and they're working for the big guy and they're doing exactly what he wants.
Joe Biden's federal government?
Yeah, Joe Biden's federal government that's already got multiple indictments against Joe Biden's chief political opponent,
Like, who do you
who is
appeal to?
polling above him.
I mean, to your point, no, I don't think Biden would ever pardon Trump because I don't think his base would be okay with that at all. I mean, he is their incumbent candidate, so he's their front runner in a sense, but he's not popular and he's old and nobody really wants him there. So if he doesn't have enough grace within the party to pardon Trump and come off looking like, oh, you're standing up for justice, because a lot of his supporters believe no matter what, Trump should go to jail. They can't even really name what charges they think he should be convicted on. That's why there are so many, it's like throwing pasta at a wall and seeing what will stick. Like whatever works, they'll agree to
There's
jail
not a
Trump
single conservative, Republican, libertarian, or otherwise prosecutor in Georgia who is going to go after what this is.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is at the bare minimum probable cause for a conspiracy investigation.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And aren't they charging him for some RICO stuff too anyway? So it's like a conspiracy with a conspiracy, like they're doubling up.
Also, like, isn't Kemp, the Republican governor, gonna say something?
I mean, I don't even know what to say if has he been charged or not, because they listed the charge, but he's not. The grand jury hasn't convened yet, or hasn't decided on charges yet. So what's the process here? Who do you?
We're supposed to be the greatest country on earth. Like, we're supposed to have the best legal system, and this is the best. Like, this is what we're dealing with right now. Like in the middle of an election cycle. Like,
but I think that's why we have to say, like, Georgia is a swing state. This is a political move on behalf of all Democrats in Georgia, right? If they can be the ones to get charges to stick against Trump, to actually convict Trump first, they would love that. That would lock down Georgia as a blue state in 2024. I mean, this is strategic, and they're going to, disrespect justice to achieve their political means. It feels like it's Super Bowl or like a football game, right? They're just wanting to see their team win.
The crazy thing is that apparently the DA's office, the Fulton County Court Clerk's office, referred to a, quote, fictitious document that has been circulated online, as if to argue the document isn't actually from them and it's being shared randomly. Mm-hmm. Yet Reuters has Georgia court website briefly publishes, removes document about potential Trump charges.
It's a pretty serious allegation from them if they're saying Reuters fabricated a document and that's what's being circulated online.
Wow, that's a bold claim.
Right?
Reuters,
that's their defense.
Well, here's the story. Either there's a seditious conspiracy against Donald Trump using the court system, or Reuters fabricated the news to smear opponents of Donald Trump.
And Reuters is a wire service, so like it's where a lot of news originates everywhere. If they're the ones fabricating the news, that would be deeply concerning.
So should Reuters file a lawsuit against the person who's claiming that they are lying?
Argue defamation? I mean, maybe.
Yeah.
Just lawsuit after lawsuit. It's like lawsuits just for media, because these lawsuits don't get resolved for years. So like we're just sitting here so we can freak out about it while they just keep doing the same stuff. It's insane. Like, and if you look at like what we're going to impeach Biden now, what's going to happen then? Is that process going to go through? That's that's kind of a lawsuit. I guess not the same thing.
All I want to talk about is graphene. And all I want to talk about is fuel. I want to talk about energy cost, because if we want to circumvent a revolution, a violent or revolution, we need to make energy cheaper. We need to make fuel cheaper. I know politics. I mean, we should talk about it.
It's not the only reason for it's one of the strongest reasons for revolution and civil unrest: lack of access to food, water, shelter, etc. But it's not the only reason. I mean, political instability, of course, even when there is food available. But it does tend to be food and of course, energy. I want to point this out, too, because we have this from Atlanta News First. That's interesting. August 10th. This is being highlighted in much of these stories. We have an announcement. Fulton DA Willis launches fundraising website. Yeah.
Oh, the DA.
The DA launched a fundraising website to make money. At the same time, these indictments are pre-published.
We should check that. We should check the receipts on that. I don't know when that comes out, but I'm sure there's going to be a pretty penny in there.
I was trying to track down this. Is she running for re-election? I was trying to track this down, but I think she has a quote where she's like, "Yes, we've really accomplished what we meant to," or something. Like, she uses the word accomplished. You want to be like, what do you mean? You had a goal and you achieved it? Yeah. That doesn't sound right.
It's not like you're doing your job.
I want to pull up this story here from CNN. Let's talk about this. Exclusive. Georgia prosecutors have messages showing Trump's team is behind voting system breach. Are you guys familiar with this story at all?
No.
Oh, no.
What do you think that headline means, Ian? What does that headline mean? Tell me what you think Trump did.
Behind voting system breach. It sounds like they went into voting machines and either stole code or observed something they shouldn't have observed.
So messages showing Trump's team is behind a voting system breach. You're saying it sounds like Trump's team broke into the voting systems
Yes.
and stole code and stuff like that.
Yes.
Do you want to know what the real story is?
Yeah, I'd love to.
An election official in Coffee County invited Trump's legal teams, his lawyers he'd hired, to come and inspect voting machines. And the messages they have are Trump's lawyers saying, we've been invited down to Coffee County by one of the election officials to take a look at the machines. And CNN titled it that way.
Yeah, the word breach then is a misnomer, could even be defamatory. It sounds like they maybe a voting system observation, but that wouldn't get clicks.
So what's happened now is people in the state are arguing that the election official did not have the authority to allow Trump's lawyers to come and inspect the machines. Therefore, it was an illegal breach of their voting systems and that Trump's team was behind it. So I saw this. It was actually Brian Krasenstein who tweeted it. And he said, here's the story from CNN. Trump's team was behind it. And I was like, wow, I got to know what this is. But I tell you what, every time I hear a psychotic story about Trump being some criminal mastermind, you read a couple paragraphs and you realize it's all fake news. And what did I find? You know what the best thing CNN could do is? They wrote written invitation with quotes. They then later say in the article, they've not actually reviewed the substance of the invitation or the letter itself, only communications that confirm it was provided to Frice, Carrick, and Sullivan Strickler employees. Keiss, Carrick, and Sullivan Strickler are lawyers. Lawyers were provided with a, quote, written invitation by an election official to go down and inspect voting machines. Incredible.
Yeah.
It makes
This
sense
is
like
this is a basis of his indictment in Georgia.
That's the whole bait. Wow.
Not the whole basis, but they're arguing that the DA has this and it's a component of the charges that are being brought against Donald Trump.
It's amazing.
I mean, it's hard not to look at it as just complete desperation, right? They want him to be guilty so badly that they'll just make up nonsense. This is all misleading. I mean, you were saying before, like, has he been charged or indicted? Being charged means that the DA says that there's enough evidence to prosecute you. So the DA really believes there is something on Trump. But now we need the grand jury to say, yes, we believe there's enough to prosecute, right? And that just doesn't happen. In fact, Georgia doesn't need the grand jury, apparently. They say, we have enough no matter what you say. And that's kind of insane, especially if the grand jury is reading CNN.
Look how they write this. This is amazing. On January 1st, 2021, days ahead of the January 7th voting system breach, Catherine Friess, an attorney working with Giuliani, Sidney Powell, and other Trump allies, shared a written invitation. They put it in quotes again. What does that mean?
That someone called it a written invitation, but there's maybe suggesting that
and
it
if
wasn't
you go
an
and
invitation?
dig through the story, there was an election official there's two election officials. One opened the door and let him in, got in trouble. And then one provided the invitation to examine voting systems in Coffee County with a small group of Trump allies. That group included members of Sullivan Strickler, a firm hired by Trump's attorneys to examine voting systems in the small, heavily Republican Georgia county, according to text messages obtained by CNN. That same day, Friess sent a letter of invitation to Coffee County, Georgia, to former NYPD Commissioner Bernie Carrick, who was working with Giuliani. Okay, so to clarify, I don't know that they say Strickler's a firm. I know that Friess is an attorney when it said Friess, Strickler, and what's the other name? Carrick, who was working with Giuliani, blah, blah, blah. Friess then notified operatives who carried out the breach and others working directly with Giuliani that show Trump's team had secured written permission. Okay, well, hold on a minute. How come they over and over again say in this article they did an invitation and permission, yet they call it an illegal breach?
You read, like, they said they sent an invitation, so was that in quotes? Like, that element of it? Like, they said
Look at this. It says, Friess then notified operatives who carried out the Coffee County breach and others working directly with Giuliani that Trump's team had secured written permission, the texts show. CNN has not reviewed the substance of the invitation letter itself. Only communications that confirm it was provided to Friess, Carrick, and Sullivan Strickler employees. I'm assuming Sullivan Strickler is a law firm. I could be wrong, but let me just double check. I don't know what firm means, but we'll double it. Sullivan Strickler, what is it? Legal Technology Solutions. Okay, so it is not necessarily the employees are lawyers. One of them was a lawyer. Just to clarify, because I said they were lawyers in a law firm. That could be wrong. All right. Either way, CNN is clearly lying to you by burying the core elements of the story and leading with Trump breached voting systems.
And that quote is just crazy. Like what? Like the written invitation in quotes, as though that's not exactly what they say later in the thing, that they were invited, and they don't have a letter, so they can't even prove it.
Or are they implying that the election official, who is probably Republican, if he's in a heavily Republican county, was rolling out like a written invitation, like he wanted Trump's people to be there. He's giving them preferential treatments. He's part of this conspiracy.
Frice.
I mean, that's what I think CNN is implying with this.
Yeah, I think they're making it sound like if me and Tim went into a restaurant and I was like, Tim, please take whatever you want off of the bar. And he's like, oh, okay. And I'm like, I invite you to take anything you want. And then he takes it. He'd be the one that would get in trouble for stealing. Then you maybe would say that I was conspiring with him. Mm-hmm. So I'd be the Frice in that situation. I think that's the angle they're going for. But if they didn't know that it was a crime and they were invited in by Frice to go check it out, then they're not on the hook if they didn't know. I mean, as far as I know, I don't think so.
I can't believe this is an exclusive. This is so thin. Like they use the word exclusive for this.
Exclusive, but they haven't reviewed anything.
Yeah.
Somebody told us, but we can't confirm any of it.
Yeah.
We got some texts that said it happened, so we're going to write a story that it happened.
And the way they frame it, it's like there's like a trailer out there of a bunch of wires going to, and the Trump team are hacking into the voting machine. So like it's like
if these individuals, it's Hampton and let's see, who else was it? Kathy Latham. If they were in the wrong in letting Trump's team into this, the story should be that election officials were in the wrong and Trump's team mistakenly entered, presuming that the invitation was legitimate. I mean, what are you supposed to do when you have two election officials that are like, hey, you can come in here and do your thing? You're like, okay, who are you supposed to ask?
Especially if that's your client, right? Like, you're like, cool, thanks. This is what we're supposed to be registering.
No, I'm saying election officials from Georgia told Trump's lawyers, you're good. Mm-hmm. Who are the lawyers supposed to ask if not the election officials working at this place?
I have no idea.
Yeah, the Democrats who are in charge of the state, the fake Republicans who are in charge of the state who hate Trump.
Or they're supposed to know if it's legal or illegal.
And Georgia's saying these officials didn't have the authority, but has Georgia told us who does have the authority to authorize this or not authorize it? Or they're just saying, we can't say, but that person was definitely in the wrong. Like, I don't understand what the game plan is here. How are you supposed to move forward with investigations like this if no one knows who's in charge, except you can still get in trouble or be in violation of law?
I think this was bait and the Trump camp fell for it. They say at the bottom, Latham, who also served as a fake elector from Georgia after the election, has come under scrutiny for her role in the Coffee County breach after surveillance video showed she allowed unauthorized outsiders to spend hours examining voting systems there. So she's the one who broke the rules. And I think what they mean by allowed is that she opened the door and people walked in and then she wasn't party to whatever was going on. But I think it's bait. The Trump team, they had apparently had access to this. What did they find? Did they find anything? Apparently they didn't. I think this was all them dangling the keys over here while smacking with their other hand. Ballot harvesting, manipulation through the executive branch of many states. This is what gives Joe Biden the bump. Hatred of Trump, obviously. And then you had the mass ballot harvesting operation. You had the ground activists. You had COVID lockdown. People were guaranteed to be locked in their houses. You told them they couldn't leave. And then when Trump's team are shocked to find out what happened, they distract all the conservatives, Republicans, and sabotage the Georgia Senate race by screaming fraud. Trump comes out, screams fraud, convinces his voters not to vote in the Senate race, giving the Democrats the Senate. Absolutely remarkable. And then when they go down and investigate it, what do they find? Nothing.
This makes me remember some of the January 6th trespassers, I put in quotes, some of the people that were let in. So if a police officer says you're allowed to come in and they open the door for you and you walk in and they go, you're trespassing now, and they arrest you.
You've breached the Capitol, you might say.
Yeah, yep. I think the cop is the one that committed the crime in that case by misleading the person. So
I guess that would be entrapment.
Yeah,
inducing someone to commit a crime that they would not normally commit, like telling them they're free to come in the building. And then when they do, you say, now you're under arrest. You're being criminally charged.
And whether or not you say, come on in, if you open a door, I mean, if you're a police, I don't know how that works. If you're a police officer at a locked door and you open it and stand aside, are you letting them in? Or are you just neutralizing yourself and removing yourself from the situation?
But if, you're taking an action to open door that is already closed. Like, you are going from keeping a building secure and locked to being like, I'm going to open it. And then I don't know. We'll see what happens. Like, of course, people are going to walk in, especially if you're standing there like, yeah, it's fine that this door is open.
So that's this person here. What was the name again? Fright, something like that. They're the one that opened the door. So I don't know. Kathy Latham apparently opened the door.
Oh man,
this is amazing.
It's a terrible day for Kathy Latham, I'm sure.
Well, I think she already got fired, but I'll tell you, man. you know, I talk to people about stuff like this all the time, and you get a mixed bag of responses. Some people say this is normal. And I'm like, normal? They're like, yeah, stuff like this happens all the time. The civil rights era was crazy. And I'm like, dude, they're arresting their political opponents. It's happening in real time. This has never happened before.
And they're shielding the other one. They're like Hunter Biden stuff. This is so crazy. Like
it's the empire. It's a communist revolution.
Like Nixon with Watergate, they, you know, he resigned, but then they just pardoned him. Gerald Ford pardoned him. So it wasn't like, I don't know if that's the plan here too. Maybe that's the plan here. They want Trump out, then they're going to pardon him and move on.
Here's the question. Pardon Trump. They've been working too hard for this.
Well, they don't want to be president, but they don't want a revolution.
Yeah, they want to. That's a thing. Like they're not going to go too. If they were doing something like this, they're not going to go too crazy with it, because then all of a sudden the people that they want to control are going to be a lot harder to control.
So here's what we're looking at. Is this a period of political turmoil which we'll get through and we'll forget about? Then it'll be listed as the Trump era in history, and there'll be some minor conversations about it, and we'll all forget about it. I don't think so. Is this the beginning of a civil war, a cold civil war, or active civil war? Perhaps. Is this the beginning of a revolution? Perhaps. It really just depends on what ends up happening politically. It could be a politically tumultuous time, which I hope for, in that Donald Trump gets elected, he fires, arrests people, criminal charges against these corrupt individuals. We see things like that. If Trump gets elected, you know, this DA is probably getting charged under a seditious conspiracy. Trump's going to get a DA who's going to go in and be like, New York, Florida, like DC, Florida, Georgia, these places where they were indicting Trump, you are being investigated for a seditious conspiracy against the United States for trying to jail a political rival. The question I have is, what does this become? If in 100 years, communist revolution is what happens, it will not say in the history books, communist revolution. The news articles from the day will not read of communist revolution. The Wikipedia entries won't. It will simply say that Trump was a fascist who tried to take over the country, and he was stopped by a group of heroes. They'll make movies about a ragtag band of dissenters who work together to stop Trump from stealing the election, and they'll call it the Shadow Campaign. And then they'll write in the history books about how they'll have a video where Trump is sitting at a desk and he's like, I want the systems hacked. Go in now. And then there's going to be some guys breaking the door and cracking in, an election official going, come on. And then they're going to go up and they're going to stick a USB into a computer and go, whoa, that's what the biopics will all show. All the historical era pieces, or it's civil war, in which case it eventually breaks out into fighting, dissolution, fracturing of government facilities, various factions fight. I had a friend ask me today. He said, when the news came out about Georgia indicting Trump, I was like, this is insane. This is like Civil War era stuff. I don't even think during the Civil War that it got as bad. There was threats of jailing a Supreme Court justice. I don't think Blinken actually did. And now you have Biden trying to jail Trump. My friend's like, there's not going to be a civil war. Who's going to fight? A bunch of Trump supporters? And then I said, how many people fought in the American Revolution? Do you guys know?
No idea.
As the story
tenth of
goes,
the population or
it's like 3%. It may actually have been quite a bit more than that, but very, very small. How many factions were there in the Syrian civil war? There were a dozen plus different factions. Like, people seem to think that civil war means some Trump supporter will come out, file legislation, and say, we hereby declare we are in civil war. Bang. Like, that's how it ever worked. The crazy thing is, in the actual civil war, after the first Battle of Bull Run, okay, so this is the crazy thing. The Battle of Fort Sumter. They say this is the start of the Civil War. Only one guy died, and by accident, because they didn't think there was actually a civil war. Then you get the first Battle of Bull Run. What was it, Manassas or something? They did not even think there was a civil war at that time when we were talking about the second fight in the Civil War. And people were picnicking and laughing. Yeah. And when the fighting broke out, people panicked and fled. And when the Confederacy won, they still did not believe they were in a civil war, so they refused to march on Washington. Wow. The Confederacy could have just won instantly by marching into Washington after they won the first time. It's like, no matter how much was happening, they did not believe it was a civil war. I read this academic article about when did it become the Civil War, because I was interested with everyone talking about what's happening in the United States. When will people actually say we're in a civil war? I have no idea. Maybe they won't, because something could change and it could become a revolution. Or if it is a revolution, they won't even call it a revolution. They'll say they'll say justice or something like that. Or Trump gets elected, fires everybody, and they just say thwarted a communist revolution. Who knows? And I was reading about how at first it was called the conflict between states and a rebellion and things like this. And then eventually, after a few years, I think it was like 1 or 2 years, it was being referred to as civil war. But it's remarkable to me that they could be shooting and killing each other and be like, but we're not in a civil war. That's crazy. And then you have the story of John Brown and Bleeding Kansas, 7 years in the lead up of the Civil War and the people he killed. And I'm like, for all we know, in 100 years, they're going to be like, dude, this like the second Civil War period was crazy. And like, we're in a civil war now. And then some dude's going to be like, bro, we're not in a civil war. Come on. And then they're going to go, do you know the story of what happened with Michael Reinl in Portland? This communist with a tattoo on his neck, he walks up to a Trump supporter and just shoots him twice in the chest. Just like today, we talk about John Brown walking up to a slave owner, pulling out a gun and blasting him in the face. Like, for all I know, it could be 10, 20, 30 years, or it could never happen. But I'm just saying, like, people never know when they're in the conflict. You can't see the forest, you're in it.
Do you think part of the evolution of the American Civil War was different because we were used to fighting on our own soil, whereas modern people are used to wars being things that happen somewhere else? I mean, I'm thinking in comparison, like the time difference between the American Civil War or the Revolutionary War and the Civil War really wasn't that great. Whereas we were, we fought in Vietnam, we obviously had wars in Afghanistan, but they happen elsewhere. So we don't think conflict happens on our own soil.
I mean, it does though. I mean, the Civil War was one of the bloodiest battles ever.
But in comparison, it's so far back, people like feel disassociated from it.
No, because they're not even. We are clearly at war with Russia and Ukraine, and even now they're like, no, we're not.
I think it's because people don't see it. They feel like it's happening somewhere else, so it's sort of amorphous.
I think you just can't see the forest through the trees. You're in it. So we're looking at any reasonable person who has read the news and understands what's going on knows the United States is at war with Russia, period. We provided weapons and intel so that a Ukrainian could blow up the flagship of the Black Sea Fleet, Russia's Black Sea Fleet. Like, come on, that's not Ukraine doing it. And that you say, we're at war with Russia. No, Ukraine is.
Well,
we're just helping them.
What I think is interesting how you said like that 3% was fought in the Civil War, right?
No, a revolution.
A revolution.
But I don't know that that's true. That's what they say. I'll fact check right now.
Yeah, so like if that is such a small number, like think about all the normal Americans that they don't even know about politics or even care. Like I know people even just an hour away from DC that could care less. They'd have no idea what I'm talking about if I talk about something like this. Like we could very much be, and I was trying to be so bearish on the Cold War thing that Tim was saying, but honestly, the more I think about it, and also I don't know what they're going to do. The other thing you were saying earlier about when Trump becomes president and he starts ripping through these institutions, if he becomes president, like that's a worst case scenario for these guys. Like
quick Google search, they say the 3% thing is a myth.
Okay.
So let me, but keep talking. I'm just reading.
Okay. Well, then damn, we're wrong about that one. We'll scrub that point. We're scrubbing that point from the record. But but think about if you're Merrick Garland, if you're any of the Chris Wray, if you're any of these guys, the worst case scenario for you is if Trump becomes president. If a Republican becomes president, maybe you can cut a deal with like DeSantis or somebody else. But like Trump's people, they've been getting attacked for 4 straight years. They're coming for blood. Like that's the one thing that makes me worried about when you say that this might be the last election we have in American history, or at least for a while, or the last real one. Like if I'm them,
between 3 and 10%.
That's still tiny. Yeah.
The higher estimate is about 10% because there was a lot of militia involved. The Continental Army was about 75,000 at the time when the U.S. population was 2.5 million. Isn't that crazy? And so a bunch of different sources say they think the 3% thing comes from the size of the Continental Army compared to the size of the U.S. population, which makes sense. But then when you actually break it down, it doesn't make sense because women don't fight, the elderly don't fight, a lot of younger people. So that could theoretically reduce the total percentage of eligible fighters. But then you take into consideration active militia, which were not registered or Continental, and they say it could be closer to about 10%, in which case a very, very small percentage of individuals.
Oh, is 10% of the available fighting force fought?
10% of the population.
So like that includes women and children, like little kids too?
10% of the population, meaning 90%, 100% of them are men.
Oh, okay. So just the available fighters, 10% of those went to war.
10% of all of the population fought. Of that 10%, they were all eligible fighters. It is not that 10% of eligible fighters fought.
Well, then that means because that number would be if
So let's
30% of the population was kids.
Let's break it in half and say the population is 2.5. So let's say about 1.25 million men. Let's say that 400,000 are between elderly and children. Maybe that's unfair. It probably would be if they're having, how many kids were they having back then? Let's just say 5.
Yeah, at least, bro.
5 kids. So then you've got a smaller portion of elderly, but we'll cut it in half, take 2.5. So then if we're looking at 1.25, it's fair to say, yeah, maybe 300 to let's say 500,000 because there were a lot of children were not eligible. You then have 750,000 eligible fighters. Of that, 250,000 fought. So we're looking at roughly 1/3 of eligible fighters, or 10% of the total population.
That's what I'm thinking.
But I'm just throwing numbers off the top of my head. The point is this. We have 300 some odd million people in this country right now. It takes only a small amount of people to disrupt a system. In New York, so back in the day, think about this. 2.5 million people and 75%, and 75,000 are Continental Army, 3%. How many people serve in the U.S. military service today? Someone want to look it up real quick? Quick Google search here. And then my point is, as Ian is searching this, the U.S. population is massive. New York City, for instance, in the metro, we're looking at 10 million. In the city proper, I think it might be 9, but they only have like 40,000 cops.
This says a 1.3 million active duty personnel. 1.3 million as of 2022.
1.3 million. So we're talking about what, 0.3% of the population of this country is active duty, but it was 10 times that during the American Revolutionary period.
They were during World War II. They were drafting, I think, 3 million people a year, something like that. So the draft you could draft.
All that matters is the size of institutional violent forces versus the percent of population that are feeling unrest.
Well, what I'm thinking is I think when you said cultural revolution, that's what we're looking at. Nobody wants to come to blows. We don't want the nukes to launch. China doesn't want to invade. They don't want to trigger some sort of hellfire. But they want to control the minds. They want to get people to turn on each other. And so how many people are aware of that? Those are the active fighters of the day, quotes.
Let me pull up this story for you. From the Post-Millennial, 30 million Americans say violence is justified to keep Trump from power. University of Chicago study. The U Chicago professor said the public is more radicalized, and that's really quite significant. Okay, but before we opine on this, let me read and break this down because we got to be careful here. They say the study found that 11.6% of U.S. adults agree that a use of force is permissible to prevent Donald Trump from becoming president. This amounts to around 30 million people. But hold on there. A total of 3,543 U.S. adults were polled for the survey in June of 2023, with a reported margin of error of 2 to 3 percentage points. University of Chicago professor Robert Pape, who led the research, said that while he believes recent indictments against President Trump have created radicalization, there is also growing anger and radicalization on the left as well. Oh, gee, you think? The public is more radicalized than it was in April, and it's really quite significant. We've been tracking this quite a while, and this is really a big bump. What Pape did not mention is that the number of people who would approve of violence when it serves a desired political outcome on the left dwarfs that of the right. In the same study, it was determined that the amount of Americans who say the use of force is justified to return Trump to the White House has shot up from 6 million in the past few months to about 18 million. It's almost half the amount of people who justify using violence to keep Trump out of office. So right now, when it comes to radicalization, I don't know if this actually means 30 million Americans. It translates to perhaps.
No.
These studies are done in such a way that they have successfully, in many instances, extrapolated data to a great degree. The only question is margin of error. They say 2 to 3%. Maybe it's 5 to 10, 10 to 20. Let's say the margin of error is 10 to 20%. You think that would be fair, Ian?
It's tough to tell. It's impossible to tell. That's the problem with this article, and it's disgusting that they wrote that headline. That
Why?
is complete mislead because they only polled 3,500 people.
But do you know how polls work?
Yeah.
How do they work?
You get a small group of people, and then you ask them a question or a group of questions, and then you can do whatever you want with that.
So the way
data.
it works is they have charts tracking various demographics. They poll the demographics in key areas. They figure out what the majority of these areas think and feel. Then they do a wider sample size with different questions and say, if the Cast Castle household, 100% of this house, everyone polled in it said they would not vote for Joe Biden. Some might vote Libertarian, some might vote Trump, but 0 for Biden. When they do a larger poll and they say, we called this house and we were told that they don't think violence is justified, they extrapolate that with a margin of error to say previous polls in the area based on demographic views and studies have shown that this group tends to vote this way. When we asked them, they said this. They then target a bunch of different areas and say, this 3,500 people is actually a very large sample size for a poll. I think it's fair to say, however, the margin of error could be way larger, and to just immediately say 30 million Americans say, no, we've extrapolated that data point. But it does suggest, a study suggests 30 million Americans believe violence is justified. It doesn't mean they will commit the violence, however, just that someone else could.
I think
if they were put on a jury, they would be like, we sympathize with what you did.
Either way, I think it is absolutely fair to say this is patently obvious when you talk to these people and when you see people go and do men on the street interviews with them. They absolutely agree with this in major cities.
Oh, in a lot of places, definitely. I just think that they should have done it by percentage, like this percentage of people versus 30 million, because that makes it sound like there's exactly 30 million out here that are ready to go to war. Right
yeah,
now.
could say,
and it also says that the study says that 30 million people said it. I mean, this is completely misleading, disgusting.
10%. It could say 10% of 11.6% of poll respondents said that violence was justified to stop
the word
Donald
millions
Trump.
in all caps too. It's such clickbait.
Inconsequential number either. Like that's a big percentage.
That's
like, that in
our good
itself
friends over at the Post Millennial.
I have great friends at Post Millennial. That is disgusting, you guys.
30 million Americans did not say this. That's very, very different. But there is a study that says 11.6% of those who responded said they would. I don't think the study just went to an Antifa enclave or went to a DNC meeting and said, how do you feel? I think they did a standard, study. Let me, what do we have? Political crisis. It's from July. What do they explain?
Can you go to the study? Does it link to it?
It just links to a news article. Do we have this actually? University of Chicago.
Because if they link to the actual study,
Nope.
sometimes that's...
Anger and radicalization. Rising number of Americans say political violence is justified. Survey shows a small but significant share of Americans believe in the use of force to attain political goals on both the left and the right. It's funny, they don't mention that the study shows that on the right, it's half of what the left wants. So this is from about 2.5 weeks ago. And let's see, do they have the study here? Dangers Project has been conducting Dangers to Democracy. Now they just linked to another one of their own stories.
Also, if it Dangers to Democracy survey sounds like a pretty biased way of like, we're in danger. You need to get ready, get going.
Well,
like,
Danger to Democracy is a left biased title because Republicans, conservatives, libertarians don't call the United States a democracy because it's not.
Yeah, like, would you fight if you were in danger? Is
So
a lot bigger a question. Would you fight? You know, adding the danger part of it is like, well, if I'm in danger, I'm going to be a lot more likely to fight for my life.
So here's how it should actually break down. If this was framed that way and it's skewed liberal in their survey questions, that means that of that 11.6, there's a massive bias. So the number is probably much less among both groups. In fact, you could argue if it was left biased, then the political violence to support Trump would be a lot lower. You ask a liberal, do you think violence should be used to put Trump in office? They say no. Do you think violence should be used to stop Trump? They say yes. If you poll 2,000 Democrats and 1,000 Republicans, you will get the numbers you're looking for. That's the important thing to track with these studies. But here's what I want to get to. I don't know if this is true. All right, it may be. 1 in 5 Americans believe that the election is stolen. These polls are not always accurate. Sometimes they are, sometimes they aren't. Some of the, but what have they been off by? Like 7 to 10%? Let's just say the number is 7 to 10%. Let's track all of the polling that we've seen thus far in the past 2 elections from, let's just take a look at 2020 and 2022, the presidential and then the midterms. The polling, actually 2016. Let's look at from 2016 till now. The polling has been consistently off by between 7 or 10%. So that means we're looking at 20 million people in this country would hold those sentiments if the polling was off by that much. And it could be in the other direction. It could even be higher. It could be 40 million people who believe in the use of force and violence.
But when it comes to plaintively telling humans how many people want to fight to kill right now, we should be very specific about who claimed that. Like, it was only 3,500 people that made those claims. So I do not want to extrapolate.
It was 360
people of 3,500 people polled. So it was very, 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 very very tiny.
And now considering that, and considering the polls have been wrong by about 7 to 10% in favor of Trump, I think it stands to reason that the number is probably a bit less than 30 million. And we can argue that the 11.6% number is probably, if we were to drop it down, it's probably closer to 9%. And that's a high removal, because I was saying just 10%, but that's nearly 20% being removed from that number,
and people
from 11 to 9. But so that then we'd be looking at what, 15 to 20 million people who want to engage in violence?
Except that a lot of people that answer polls to begin with are people that are politically activated. And those are the people that would be more likely to, in a situation, take up arms, I think, or people who are already aware of what's going on.
Let's say the amount of people that want to engage in, that are willing to engage in violence is 5 million. Let's say it's 2.5 million. Or three. Let's just say 1/10 of what they actually got.
1/10 of 1%.
3 million people. I think when you look at the Summer of Love, it's clear to see that there are millions of people prepared to engage in violence.
Offensive violence? I don't know.
They did it.
Yeah, I mean,
Hundreds of thousands of people all over the country. I mean, how many people? I know that during Occupy Wall Street, they said there were 300,000 at its peak had protested in some capacity. But this ranges from actually sleeping in a park to marching down the street a couple times. Mm-hmm. When it came to the Summer of Love riots, how many people actively rioted? What do you think? 50 to 100,000? Because it was all over the country. Mm-hmm. There had to be hundreds in every city, even small towns.
And there were multiple nights. I mean, it wasn't just one riot and then we call it a day.
Yeah. 50 to 100,000. I don't know. What I can tell you is, we had talked about this a long time ago. The amount of people required to destabilize this country and kick off some really crazy stuff, it's like a couple dozen.
Well, and we already know violent crime is up in every major city across the country. We know that we are seeing violence on a more regular basis than we have in years past. So it wouldn't be surprising to me that people would then say, like, if I feel politically motivated, I would also be willing to act violently. That's a simple conclusion to draw. I don't know what the number on that would be. It just seems like people feel more unrest and are willing to act out on that than ever before.
What I think is interesting, I feel like there's a lot of violent people in the country, but to be like purposefully violent is kind of a different thing, right? Like if you look at remember when Kai Cenat had that thing, that's his name, right?
Yeah,
and that bunch of people started just
PlayStation
rioting.
giveaway.
Yeah, and everybody started going crazy.
I think that proves it, to be completely honest.
That it could happen, yeah.
That we're on the cusp of it. When people are willing to be violent and destructive for no reason. We talk about Civil War and they're like, who's really going to fight? I don't know, a random guy who's bored, because we've seen that happen over and over and over again in the past couple of years. People just being like, it's on, I guess. Mm-hmm. They lose control and they go and smash stuff. You know what? Let's pull up the story, ladies and gentlemen. Here we go. You may have seen the video over the weekend. We have this from the Daily Mail. Los Angeles Nike store robbed as shoplifters hit Topanga Nordstrom again. The latest in a troubling string of violent smash and grab incidents. There's a video going around. Nordstrom ransacked for $100,000 worth of merchandise. They're not even covering their faces anymore. I saw a video of guys robbing a supermarket. They didn't even wear a mask. It's three dudes. They walk in, they grab up, they fill up their cart, walk out, go to the car and start filling it up while a guy films them. There's a video of a woman stealing from a store. She just throws it in her car, jumps in her car, speeds off. Mm-hmm. This is what people don't get. Civil war, or I should say revolution, or social breakdown in many countries, especially the ones that I've seen, it is not like a bunch of people go outside, stand in front of a podium and say, "We, the people of the Continental Liberty faction, hereby proclaim." It's like a group of people run through a building, smashing up things and setting fires for no reason. Mm-hmm. And then in the chaos, people start to seize power shifts. You get a bunch of people looting and smashing. And then when this spreads too far and it spreads to political areas, the system breaks down. When you've got these smash and grabs going on at this Nordstrom, apparently it happened again. I don't know if you guys have seen the video. Look at this guy just filling up his bags, being like, ain't nothing you can do about it. Cops aren't going to do anything about it.
Well, and if he were to get caught, he'd get released. It's California, right?
Now, what happens to, what does a regular person think? Run-of-the-mill, law-abiding citizen says, what's the purpose of money?
Why am I following these rules? Like, why am
I don't think they say that. I think they're terrified that if they, right now, the story is a man rapes a woman on a train in Philadelphia. And the question is, why didn't anyone save her? Well, because if you tried to, you go to prison. Like when that dude in New York stopped that guy threatening to kill people. They charge him with a crime. So now people are thinking, if you follow the law, you go to jail. If you try to protect yourself, you go to jail. And you don't need money to buy anything because criminals don't go to jail. I think more and more people are just going to say, these are the new rules.
That's what seems like is happening.
That's exactly
and
what
they're
it
going
is.
to live in fear, right? Like you guys had a different reaction than I did. I would say, why would I still live here? Why would I go to this Nordstrom if this is what's happening?
I don't think they live in fear.
Before, well, I was going to say before the show, I was reading the story about the 76-year-old who got stabbed when he on the New York subway platform. I think this was today because he refused to give a panhandler money. I mean, I think as social order breaks down, people become more conscious of the fact that like your safety is not guaranteed, which of course you should always be careful. On the other hand, the increased number of stabbings on New York City public transit is concerning, right?
Did you see the video of there's two black guys holding an Asian guy? One black guy's holding the Asian guy so he can't move with his arms locked, while the other guy just winds up and smacks him in the face over and over again. People just walk by.
Someone just videoed it? I don't
they just filmed it.
understand.
People just watched and filmed and they didn't do anything about it. It was a Stop Asian Hate thing, like that was going viral.
Being Asian in New York actually seems terrifying, honestly. I feel like I see videos of Asian guys and old Asian people getting just hauled off and just wrecked by black guys up there. It's crazy. I'll say also with this this whole LA $100,000 thing, I wouldn't be shocked at all if this is organized. Like, I think there's some criminal people out there right now that see that people don't get in trouble for stealing this stuff, and they go out there and they organize large groups of people to go steal this stuff.
Well, that
It's
would
like
be
the
a
worst
mafia.
flash mob ever.
That would be a mafia then, and maybe there is a new mafia that's created of just young people that are stealing and coordinating theft. That would be a new
think those-
mafia. Then
those
that
are
would
just
require
gangs,
federal
right?
attention. Yeah, these gangs. Exactly. Yeah.
We're too busy.
So
RICOing
I'll
down
issue a clarification on this story. The viral video that was going around, because I just Google searched it. So apparently the guy beating the guy being held claims the Asian man he was beating was groping women.
So great. I love the destruction, the collapse of society.
That's all. I mean,
You know what I
right.
mean, though? Like, if that's true, then we have this random guy groping women on a public subway platform. And if
then
not,
two guys get engaging in vigilante justice to try and stop him from doing
sure.
it. If
Or
that's even true.
If that's not true, then
don't
it's
even
just
know
like
that's
two
true.
guys beating up this other guy. Like, either one, not great for society. Does not make me want to take the subway in New York.
And this is why people just they tune out. They don't want to look at like stuff like this. Like, this is so complicated. Like, we have no idea what really happened here. Like, these guys might have just hauled off and attacked this dude. That happens all the time in New York. This guy might have been groping women. That happens all the time in New York. Why am I, the farmer from Kansas, going to give, a rat's butt about this thing?
This is a good example of the problem with why people don't help anyone. I just said a guy rapes a woman on a subway cart in Philadelphia. Why doesn't anyone help? Because you pull the guy off, you stop him from doing it. Now you're on camera beating up some guy, and they're going to arrest you, charge you, and everyone's going to say they hate you for doing it. Just like so. Earlier today, my friend is watching the video and he goes, "Look at this," and I passively see it and I go, "Wow, I don't even know what's going on." And so I bring it up here on the show. I look it up and I'm like, the claim they made is that he was trying to sexually assault a woman, so they grabbed him, pulled him off, and then smacked him around. Here's my issue with it: you stop him from doing it, then you stand in a subway cart after you've stopped it, keep his arms locked, and then slap him repeatedly. Is still not a good thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I know you say this all the time, but it like makes you want to leave cities. Like, if this is what's happening, you want to be far away from people, which I don't advocate for an antisocial society, right? I think community is actually important, but this is not community. Again, you want to give credit if someone is doing something like stopping someone else from assaulting a woman. On the other hand, do we even know what happened? We can't even trust anything we hear because we're so used to a warped media. It's kind of depressing, honestly. You just don't know where to turn to.
Wow. I mean, so in the video, they've got him pinned. They've got him held back. You can see this. They're holding him so he can't move. Then one dude knocks him out, slaps him in the head, knocking him out. Then the other guy starts punching him in the head several times.
Oh, well, they went way too far. Don't care what he was doing. You knocked him out and then you beat his head on the ground. Like, what the hell?
I'll tell you this. This is what happens in societal breakdown. You get a story of a guy raping a woman on a train and no one does anything. And then you get guys like this who see a guy going after women and then they beat the crap out of him. It's like I was saying with I bring it up all the time with V for Vendetta, when the inspector says eventually someone will do something stupid. And it shows the finger man, the cop, shoot the little girl. And then all of the locals walk up to him with bats and crowbars. And then it's heavily implied they beat him to death.
I don't like vengeance. And when I asked on Twitter, I was like, okay, just ask him for a friend. Is Jesus Christ into vengeance? Just ask him for 8 billion people. And a lot of the Christians, I want the Christians to say out loud, was Christ your savior into vengeance? Does he suggest you create vengeance on your foe? And people are like, no, God does, but not Jesus. But some people say Jesus is God. So yes, it was very confusing. But then there's the question of what's the difference between vengeance and justice? Like, obviously, if someone commits a horrific crime, there should be justice. But justice doesn't always imply punishment. So I don't know. I don't think revenge and seeking out after the threat has been neutralized to go make your emotions on that guy, like that just doesn't, I do not. That is a repetitive cycle that will grind us into the dust. So we've got to be careful not to fall into it.
I think it's all breaking down. This is what happens during the breakdown.
Yeah, I think so too.
And then eventually people don't feel safe on the subway trains. Eventually things are going to get a bit worse than this. We had the video of the guys in Stockton beating the guy with a stick. Now that guy, we know for sure on camera, threatened to kill the store clerks. And so they grabbed him and then started attacking him. What do you do to subdue a guy he pulled out some kind of weapon? I don't know.
Did he have a knife or something?
Looked
right?
like a knife.
Yeah.
And that kills you. One knife to the chest, you die. And so they start hitting him and all they had was a stick. And then the guy just cried. And then there's more photos, I guess body camera footage showing the guy on the ground just being like, they stopped eventually. The cops came and got him. They announced they would not be charging these guys. But I wonder if this can reverse itself in the sense that a culture starts to emerge where people will just say, we don't care what happens. The cops are going to have to deal with it, and they'll start attacking the criminals.
Well, there's so much stuff going on. New York's so big, like a place like this. You're so desensitized with the internet. I think all you can really do is like those guys. Just be with yourself, protect yourself. Make sure you're ready. Make sure you can protect your family. Make sure you can protect those around you that you care about. Because we're getting to the point, and that's, I guess, that is the destruction of a community. Because you only care about the singular in that scenario. But all you can really do out here these days, especially like I live in D.C., people are crazy. Like that guy from Rand Paul staffer got stabbed. I don't know if you guys have seen that video.
Yeah.
That's crazy. He was just walking down the street
In
and
the
out of
middle of the
nowhere
day,
the guy
right?
and just stabbed him.
For no reason.
There was, I can't remember which congressman it was, who a guy followed her into her apartment elevator and like she threw coffee on him and like he was sort of attacking her. Like this stuff is happening all the time. And of course we hear about it more when we're connected. People are connected to someone in the public space, but can you imagine just being one of the run-of-the-mill people who gets attacked on the street? You have to make a report to the cops, and the cops are like, I know, crazy, right? People are getting stabbed all the time.
Yeah, we were just watching before the show footage from the Rodney King riots in Los Angeles, and it was like Asian store owners just walking outside and shooting at random Korean. Thank you. Shooting at random people or people that they thought were threatening their store. I don't know if those people ever got arrested and charged, but we're in the age now of social media, so we've got this technocratic oversight that's like it seems like it's trying to criminalize self-defense. Like Daniel Penny apparently choked out some bum that was threatening to kill or hurt a bunch of people on a train. So he choked him out and then he got arrested for it. Like he defended those people and then he's the one that got in trouble. That wouldn't have happened in the early 90s. That didn't happen in the 80s when we didn't have social media where people get to sit and think for like a week, watch the video over and over. Should we go after that guy? Should we go? Should we?
They mentioned on Wikipedia that no rioters were fatally shot by any of the Korean volunteers. The interesting thing is they point out that because South Korea has a 2-year mandatory military service, all these guys had firearms experience.
So they were warding them off with their warning shots, but they were firing.
It's probably safer then, though, right?
People.
Like they have experience handling a gun. They're not someone who just bought a gun because they're scared and they don't know how to use it.
You could argue that wasn't even self-defense at that point.
Why?
Because
they're
there was
defending their store.
Maybe, but the people weren't near the store that they were shooting at. I didn't see any people on cameras, just dudes out in front shooting like around. Not so much the point. The point is this technocratic march towards communism is making us look at ourselves hypercritically and criminalize self-defense. We got to stop doing that to ourselves. We have to let self-defense reign. You need to be able to defend yourself in your community or the community will fall. You have to do that.
I think it's interesting what you said, how we watched that clip hundreds of times over and over again, because if you've been in like a fight before or any kind of like physical altercation, it's quick. It's not like you're sitting there and you're deciding your next move like you're Sherlock Holmes in that movie. Like you're trying to sit there and you're surviving and you're reacting. And so people like, they gauge like, oh, I wouldn't have choked him for that long. I was like, well, I'm holding on to that guy for dear life, like and stuff like that.
You have no idea what
he could get up and kill you.
Yeah.
That's the thing about the guy, the Sikhs in Stockton who are beating the guy with the stick. And there are some people being like, yeah, but they kept going and he was begging and crying. And it's like, and he could kill them. He pulled some kind of weapon and threatened them with death. And he had threatened to shoot them in the past. That was reported in previous stories.
And they're not trained. It's not like they're police officers. It's not like they're jujitsu fighters on the ground to go wrestle this guy's knife away. Like they're trying to.
Have you seen the video of the guy who executes? I think it was a 7-Eleven clerk.
Yeah.
He walks behind the counter. He's pointing the gun at him. The guy's on his knees, just with his hands up. The guy opens the register, takes the money, looks at him, shoots him in the head, and then grabs the money, and just walks out casually. And so we build this system where we're supposed to tell victims, just sit there and hope you don't die, but you might. That's insane.
Didn't some maybe it was a different clerk in like New York or 7-Eleven, didn't he stab someone or shoot somebody that came into the store that was attacking him,
stabbed,
and they
and then
put
he
him in
locked him
jail?
up.
Right? Yeah, that's
right.
insane.
What was that story? A guy.
A woman got mad because the potato chips cost too much money or something like that. Told her boyfriend. The boyfriend came in, started hitting the store clerk, and she pulls out a knife. They fight. He grabs the knife from her, stabs the guy who was beating him. The guy, I guess he died. Is that what happened? Or no, he went to the. He didn't die. I don't think.
I don't know if he might.
But
have killed him.
they arrested the store clerk and sent him to Rikers.
Yeah.
Whoa. And then
For
only
what? For murder?
for
homicide?
assault or something. And then only after major outcry did he get released.
Yeah, those guys with the stick could easily, and like if they're in the wrong place, wrong time, wrong DA, like we're talking about the Trump stuff right now, I guess that kind of comes
Or if
back.
no one caught it on video, right? Like there are people who are in the right to defend themselves who don't get the kind of public outcry that guy got. You're dependent on someone else advocating for you, which is crazy.
It feels so obvious. I don't know if this is true. It feels like foreign governments and foreign corporations, I'm talking about the World Economic Forum, I'm talking about the CCP, God knows the Russian governments involved, are trying to get the United States to fail. They want us to hurt each other and to die, and they would love for us to criminalize our own defensive capabilities. So why would you let that happen? Why? Think about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. I think people do want to see America fail, and that's why people have to be conscious of what's going on around them.
I don't know how to help. I don't know how to help besides making some grand sacrifice.
Well, all you can do is like work on in your small community where your friends are, like, and try to make sure that they're safe, they're healthy, they're working hard, they have a good avenue to get out of this stuff. And I think about, like, I used to be a little bit more like, what are we going to do? Full rebel? Like that's not gonna work out. Like maybe it does. Maybe we have to. Maybe that's what ultimately is going to happen. But what you can focus on when stuff is going on like this is make sure you're armed, make sure you're healthy, make sure you have a good food supply. Like make sure you know how to farm, you know how to hunt. That's one that I have friends that have never held a gun. Like I've never shot a gun before. Like, what if it all does go bad and we have to start hunting and fishing and stuff like that? At least I was raised that way because I'm from the South. Like, I can't imagine some of these Yankee guys up in New York. Like, what are they gonna do? Like, can't go to the gazebo up there, you know? Or the...
True. Yeah.
Yeah, there's nothing that they can. I mean, you make a lifestyle choice when you are choosing to live in certain cities and certain states, and I get that, but I think there's a lack of long-term thinking. You know, I think right now people are thinking, well, New York City's beautiful and great. And there are lots of wonderful things about cities in the country, cities across the country. It's just the state of them right now. You have to be conscious of the choice that you're making if you're what you're choosing to live in.
Yeah, we've been living too fat for too long, I think, too. I think that's part of it. America's been on top for too long.
Yeah.
We're getting soft. We don't have to do the conflicts. I know that not that many people have fought, like you were saying earlier, in those battles. And like I guess that, so people will say maybe not everybody fought back then, but I think that we had some hard choices that we haven't had to have in a while, and we're facing the repercussions.
Yeah, we need to prepare for war, every one of us. And that's so it doesn't happen. We need to know how to fire a gun. We need to know we're on a kid-friendly show right now.
Ian started working out for this music video, and he's getting more and more conservative.
that study was right.
I was watching videos about on the ancient Romans and how they would conquer Capua, for instance, their southern neighbors. There was a bunch of farmers. They didn't know how to fight because they lived their whole lives as just farmers living off the land. And then when the mountain men came in, they knew how to fight, and they were the ones that took the land. So if we don't know how to fight, we're basically these fat farmers waiting to be taken. Yep. And it's not like that stuff doesn't happen anymore. It's not like there aren't hardened warriors out there that want our stuff. We need to be prepared.
China wants our stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I think the cartels
And China's
do.
got super soldier programs.
Yeah, it's true.
Wait, what?
Yeah, you didn't know that?
Oh, of course they do. No
Yeah,
way.
let me search that one.
Classic China.
They just do whatever sci-fi thing they saw from the 80s. Like the China's just gonna try it.
But I
Look at this
honestly feel
story.
like that.
China has done human testing to create biologically enhanced super soldiers, says top U.S. official. U.S. intelligence agents didn't immediately respond to requests about whether China seeks to create soldiers like those in Captain America.
But doesn't this make sense? Don't they like specifically ask certain like athletic people to have children to like create more athletic people?
Well,
They like
but, like-
pre-select. Like this makes complete sense that they would be like, if it applies to their sports, but wouldn't apply to their military?
What if they made, what if they genetically engineered humans to like have superpowers, jump really high, or throw lightning bolts or something? Would you be really that opposed to it if they made the X-Men? Then we'd all think it's really cool. Like they'd be like Harry Potter, and all the millennials would be very, very into it.
Possibly.
Yeah.
Yeah, or there's just gonna be like these like Chinese shills, like super red army, whatever. Yeah, it'll be X-Men, but it'll be very CCP X-Men. You know,
That's a cool idea for a fiction sci-fi kind of thing, though. China invents super soldier serum that gives people some kind of abilities. If I were to do it, it wouldn't be super like ridiculous, like laser eyes. It's a little that's nuts. But it would be like stronger, faster, jump higher, be younger, things like
I thought
that.
that was just TRT, dude.
And then what happens is people in the United States start justifying why the Chinese Communist Party is good, desperately begging for access to their serum technology.
To their CRISPR
Oh, that's a
technology.
brilliant
Yeah,
idea.
It's the first
You
thing.
should coin that. That's copyrighted for Timcast. All right.
Yeah, you heard it here first.
They'll be able to see super far, like long distance vision.
There will be like spies working within the U.S. that are just like American citizens who turn traitor for China because they want access to this technological advancement.
What's our super soldier program like?
You know we got one.
We better.
No, we don't.
I
No way. You've seen our military recruiting strategies. We're like, look at this girl. She's got 2 moms. She's
I want
gonna make a
dudes that
great
can hold their
submarine
breath
operator.
for like. You need dudes that can hold their breath for like 60
Like
minutes.
fishmen. Yeah, I was thinking about the fishmen.
They can. There's these things where they can inject into. I'm not sure what it is exactly. It's some sort of red blood cell or something. This is an old tech too, like from 15 years ago, into the bloodstream, and it lets you like only breathe once every 30 minutes or something. I should find this.
There's
and pull
those
it up. It's really
divers.
cool.
I think that might be similar. There's those divers that can dive
Rebreathers.
for like 10. What are they can be like down there for like 10 minutes or something crazy, like that really low depths.
Yeah, yeah. You mean like just like general deep diving? But that's because of like your. It has to do with like the compression of gases. It has to do with like everything slowing down for you. There's a whole lot of stuff that goes into it. Like 'cause you're going that deep in the water. I don't know a lot about this, but I've read into it in the past as well. So.
We're getting real transhumanist in here. I feel like.
yeah, we are.
That's the name of the day, dude.
Did you find it?
No, I remember
know that
blogging this on Minds like in 2012.
They've done. They do those Guinness World Record holding your breath thing,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
and it's like I don't know 6 minutes or something. But then they also do oxygenated holding your breath, where you breathe pure oxygen and like hyperventilate, and then hold your breath. And you can hold your breath for like 20 or 30 minutes or something ridiculous.
Wow.
You guys seen the steroid Olympics?
No.
No.
Talking
that's a good
about-
idea.
They're talking. No, there's a guy. I think it's an Indian guy who's trying to start like a steroid Olymp, like where you can like.
You take
would
steroids
watch.
and you like compete?
Oh my gosh, we're watching that over the No More Olympics. Easily.
I would watch. That'd be great.
24 minutes holding his breath underwater.
What?
Wow.
Yeah.
Also, like, how do you occupy your mind during that time?
I can't even smoke a cigarette,
that's
dude.
wild.
That's what I mean, though. Like, when you are running out of oxygen, you've just trained yourself to stay totally calm so you don't panic and use more oxygen?
Well,
Yes.
you don't feel yourself running out of oxygen. You just feel how CO2 build up. That's what you get like.
Either one, though. That would
Technically,
also be hard to keep your mind
There's
off.
technically oxygen in the water, so if you and
Yeah,
there's oxygen
true.
in the air you can take in through your skin. I know it's a little transhumanist to think that you can get it any other way
I was
than
gonna say, I don't
breathing it
think
in your
it's a
lungs,
fish.
but I think you can. You can drink water and get oxygen that way. So
Yeah.
there are other ways.
Yeah.
Man, I wish I had this crazy article that I read 15 years ago about they were like injecting stuff into people and they didn't have to breathe.
The guy who's got the 25-minute record was pre-breathing 100% oxygen prior to holding his breath. So
It's kind of like the steroids thing.
Oh, that's crazy. So you can
Yep.
just huff oxygen and then you can just breathe. You can
the
hold
world
for longer.
the world record for non-oxygen assisted breath hold is 11 minutes and 35 seconds by Stefan Mifsud. For women, it's 9 minutes.
So when is that going to be the thing? Like when they're selling air because of the air quality is going to hell because of the Canada's blowing all the smoke down here. Are we going to start just huffing oxygen to survive? Is that going to be the next big big business?
They sell those like oxygen cans, right?
Intravenous oxygen injection for patients who cannot breathe. Yeah, I think this is it. This is from 2012. An injection that delivers oxygen directly into the bloodstream for patients who cannot breathe. So it's if someone like goes into cardiac arrest, you can get it right into the blood. So you don't need to breathe to get your oxygen.
I'm not a transhumanist guy, but that sounds pretty sweet. The fact that like we're basically just machines that you can just dump like a little bit of like oxygen into your bloodstream like this, and you don't have to breathe. That's crazy. Like
Wow.
Dude, like
But
super
what's the
steady.
consequence of that? That's what I think all the time. Like,
Injection
it
filled-
sounds so fun, but like,
Tiny gas-filled microparticles can be administered directly into the bloodstream, supplying it with oxygen. They're made of a single layer of fatty molecules that surround a minuscule pocket of oxygen that are placed in a liquid solution and injected into the patients.
Is that from 2012 also? This is old
Yeah.
tech. I wonder what they got now. But it's this CRISPR stuff. I wonder if people will even need to breathe very much.
I think China has probably genetically engineered a whole generation of soldiers that we don't even
Just
we don't even
underwater,
know.
do you
people that
think
can
they're
live
giving
underwater.
stuff to their kids in hospitals already? I was thinking that like are they already like have like a cocktail that they're feeding in there?
I don't know if they care about the average person. The average person can live their life, fund the economy, do menial labor, and then they start creating genetically engineered super soldiers for higher level stuff. But we all know how that goes because we've all seen The Wrath of Khan, right?
No.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, no.
I don't think I
No, I haven't. What happens?
So the long story short of it in Star Trek, a part of the lore in the past is that humans started genetically engineering people and then created super strong people who eventually felt like they were better than everyone else and should be in charge because they're smarter, faster, and stronger. And then I think the story, it's been a long time since the movie. I think they get frozen and launched into space to get rid of them. And then the crew of the Enterprise discovers the vessel and then unfreezes them. That was basically, that might be Into Darkness with Benedict Cumberbatch. I'm not sure if it was a similar plot for Wrath of Khan.
That was a good
But I think
movie.
that was Wrath of Khan. I just haven't seen Wrath of Khan since a little kid.
I just love the future where we, when we have a problem, we just freeze it and launch it into space.
Dude,
we're like, see you
something
later.
like that.
I can't deal with you anymore.
People are still actually like really doing that right now too. They're like really looking into. Some guy dropped out of high school or something. The Free Press, Barry Weiss's paper, did an article on it. Some guy dropped out of high school to start freezing people. He's like freezing dogs now, but he has other people signed up that are like gonna be frozen for long term.
Wasn't that the rumor for like Walt Disney? When I was growing up, that's what happened to Walt Disney.
I mean, I feel like a lot of stuff could have happened to Walt Disney.
Is it working? Are they bringing them, freezing them, and
I
bringing
don't know
them
if they're
back?
bringing them back. I know I think they're freezing them now with like the intention of bringing them back eventually.
Would you do that if you could?
Dude, we need.
Something wrong would be. You would come up and your brain would be half melted. Like, right? You think?
Oh yeah, I
main-
think it would never work. But
The main issue is that freezing causes water to crystallize. So if you freeze a person, it destroys and ruptures the cell wall. So they need to find ways to super cool and slow down the chemical process in the body without causing that destruction.
So
I suppose.
like run electricity
otherwise
through the
you'd have to,
body
like,
really fast or something.
Go through like what? Like,
Spin you
yeah.
really fast. So that there's constant shake you violently because then the water can't freeze.
do you think people will ever ask to just be kept permanently in a coma? They'll be like, I'm towards the end of life, but I don't like this decade. Just keep me in a coma for 10 years. And that will be like a voluntary state.
See, that seems much more like a real thing than like the freeze.
Skip a decade.
I feel like that's what people will end up doing. Because
There's
if I don't know the science, but I trust him on this, that it would be damaging to freeze and unfreeze. We don't have a way
Well,
to do it yet.
the cryogenic technology is different somehow. It's they're seeking to bypass that or whatever. So,
But I feel like that's what people will opt for in the interim. They'll be like, well, I'll just go on pause for a couple of years. I'll
And
take
then
a
they're gonna
hiatus.
let kids do it. They're gonna be like, if you're 13 and above, you're allowed to. You can stay there for about 10 years. Then you can be 23 instantly. Like
That's crazy.
Yeah, that I mean, with a neural net.
Sorry, I'm derailing this conversation.
I'm thinking about super soldiers. I just keep thinking about we need a super soldier program. We better have one because we need to be prepared.
There's no way we have a super soldier program, or at least not with the current federal government. I'm sorry, I just don't believe it. We have such low military recruitment rates. We constantly
that's exactly why we would have the program.
We lower the fitness
Exactly.
standards so we can't even get soldiers in to then
on
screen
purpose
them.
because
There's no
they're
way.
So you are thinking this is about them. I would like to recruit you to come here and get injected. No, they're taking babies 20 years ago, injecting women in the womb, and then giving birth to docile but aggressive. What I mean by that is, I should say submissive and easily commanded. 6'5", super ripped, naturally, like we do it to cows.
Right.
Like the U.S. military is willing to drop nuclear bombs all over the planet, blowing stuff up.
Right.
I would be surprised if they were not willing to genetically engineer babies 30 years ago.
I would grant you that, except for the fact that our military constantly changes leadership everywhere. So let's think about like Space Force, right? Trump was like, let's bring it back. And then Biden was like, no.
But
we're gonna think about it.
why
We're
the
gonna delay it."
assumption?
Like,
Why the assumption that the military is disclosing to the public everything they're doing?
I don't think they're disclosing it to
Space
the
Force-
public, but I don't think every federal administration would keep the program going. And so there's
well,
no
and-
way it could grow fast
they
enough.
lose so much money. Like they've like lost. Like there's so much money that's not accounted for. Like there's. I would
Yeah,
not put
Pentagon
anything
filling
past
the
it.
audit.
Yeah,
I don't understand how so many people think if I haven't heard it in the news, the military doesn't have it.
It's not that I don't think we've had it in the news. I don't think that our federal government takes our military seriously enough to have that kind of foresight. I just don't trust them
Oh,
that
bro,
much.
they do.
It would be cool, but I don't think
I was
so.
just in Colorado
that if you
Springs.
haven't heard the military doing it, you assume they're doing nothing. This actually is an argument for the inverse. If the military seems to be doing nothing, it's probably because they're bolstering in some other way.
Right.
The military-industrial complex is not going to just drop their arms and be like, I guess we can't do anything anymore. And they're not going to come out and be like, we invented this new kind of bomb. if that is their premium top tier weapon. That makes no sense. What makes more sense is the military industrial complex wants more and more money for tons of stuff. They've been doing biological research with gain of function research, and we only just figured that out, banned it, they brought it back. So in my view, we know for a fact China, well, I should say, it's been reported by U.S. intelligence officials that China has a super soldier program. I'd be willing to bet the U.S. military has crazy weapons you could not even think of. The idea that, imagine if when we were working on the Manhattan Project, the U.S. government immediately came out, went to the press and said, we are currently working on the nuclear bomb. Here's how it works and what it does. It will be commissioned in this way and located it'll be located in these areas. That's insane. Nobody knew what they were building. It was all speculation. And then, was it Truman, right? He was like, let's blow up Japan to prove to the world the power that we have. And only then people went, holy crap. And the funny thing is when it happened, news took a while to travel. These days, news travels fast. I'm willing to bet what makes the most sense is that the U.S. has been working on insane military tech that you don't know about and won't know about until they need to use it.
But they need someone to operate it, and they just can't get anyone in the door to be a part of the military.
You are making the assumption that they are telling you exactly their capabilities.
I'm not at all assuming that. I'm just saying that our military is not in a strong state. So maybe we have a lot of people who know how to operate these weapons that I don't know about. I'm happy to grant you that.
There's
On
no
the other hand,
there's no bad guys working in the government. Joe Biden is so dumb.
What's the game plan? How do you keep the military alive if you can't recruit people to part of it? Even if I don't know what's going on.
They're not telling you they're actually recruiting.
A Marvel movie fantasy dream. I'm happy to say that there's stuff I don't know about, but I think ultimately our military is not something that our government is properly creating to sustain. So there might be one project that has a really great weapon. I'm sure they wouldn't tell us. That's fine. But I don't think a super soldier project is something that they can actually manage to get off the
police hear rumors that people are drinking illegally during the Prohibition era.
Oh, this is a good one.
And they walk past an apothecary and say, certainly there's no alcohol in there. That's just a regular old pharmacy. And they walk right past it because the guy put a sign on the door saying pharmacy and we all believed it. And then you walk in the door, you push the bookcase and there's everybody drinking beer. The idea that the military is going to tell you their capabilities, I think, is absurd. Now, don't get me wrong. The forward-facing military, as we know it, is struggling. That's in the news. What I'm saying is China has a super soldier program. The idea that the United States does not engage in unethical and psychotic behavior that's the fantasy. Because we know that they were funding gain of function research illegally in violation of the law. They did it. And we only found out several years later.
I'm just saying,
that means it is a fact they are doing something behind the scenes.
We better have dudes
what I'm saying
in
is,
back to tanks just getting genetically altered underground mountain bases, man. We better have millions of dudes just gestating right now.
They did MK Ultra.
Hundreds of thousands.
They strapped people to chairs and injected them with crazy ass chemicals decades ago. Why would they not be like, we can make super soldiers?
Also, you want to up your recruitment, dude? Entice people with this genetic alteration. Get people to go be badass super soldiers.
Well, what I think is interesting about, like, when you're talking about Truman, like, if they had let the bomb go and they knew it's all, like, there'd be a referendum, people would be like, we demand a vote on if you're going to do this. And, like, that's why they wait. So they're not going to tell anybody, like, they're experimenting on children. Like, they're going to be like, there's going to be a referendum, especially, like, now these days on Twitter. If you have a bad idea on Twitter, we can turn that around in a day. And people be like, that was a terrible idea.
True. So we do have breaking news right now. Adrian Norman tweeting, Fulton County, Georgia, grand jury has approved 10 indictments in the Trump investigation. So I think, how many were on that document that came out?
Yeah, let's clarify this.
12?
I don't know.
And so it may be those were what they were proposing to the grand jury, and the grand jury approved 10 of them. So this is the news we have right now. I'll try and see if there's any other developments here.
What a colossal
mess. It says 0 were nullified by the grand jury right there. So
it says 0?
We're no build, whatever that means.
Interesting. I hereby certify that on August 14th, after the indictments had been presented to the grand jury and the session had been adjourned for the day, said indictments were returned in open court as required by law. Present for said return were Assistant District Attorney, it says DeAndre, I can't read the last name, Deputy Sheriff, and Deputy Clerk of the Superior Court. On this date, there were 10 indictments presented to the court. Of those indictments, 0 were no billed by the grand jury. This is the 14th day of August. So
okay,
I think that
people are saying 39 in the chat. I don't know if that's
39.
Yeah, it seems like a lot. I don't know. I've never seen anything saying 39 personally.
Is that
Well,
not
so
something
I have we have the document. We pulled it
here
up.
we go.
It's it says 15911. So it just says 39.
Okay.
Yeah.
It said that 10 were presented to the court, 0 were no build.
I think 13 are listed here.
It's 13,
Yeah.
Okay.
and I don't know how many counts in total.
So I
think
wonder
it's
what this
multiple counts.
document was, but I wonder if they just said do 10.
Yeah.
Oops, we published the document. Do 10.
Not like it matters to them.
There we go.
Just as anything they can file.
This is it. Trump is being indicted
Nice.
once again in Georgia.
Did they indict him for that RICO charge? Oh, I guess it doesn't say on that.
No, I'll have to, I don't think the news is just out right now. This is breaking right now. All right, so I've got NBC. Let's pull up NBC here and see if we've got Fulton County grand jury returns 10 indictments in 2020 election probe for Georgia. It is not yet clear who has been charged in Fani Willis's investigation into efforts by Trump. Okay, so we don't know if it's Trump, but it's Trump. Let's see. A docket appeared on the website shortly after noon. They took it down. Willis enlisted a special grand jury. 75 witnesses testified. Blah blah blah. So that's it. This is the breaking news. There's nothing else right now. We're getting at 9:24 p.m. The indictments are coming in. So, what next? What does a sane, rational person in this country do watching all of this stuff break down and fall apart?
I don't know.
Start to look into the private
Salvador?
sector for solutions. I wouldn't flee. I'm not going to flee because I think the concept of uniting states as your government is the best form of government on earth, and we have states' rights. So that's awesome. I don't like this current government that's being the people that are running this and the way it's been co-opted the last 100 years. But this organization of statehood is badass. I think that in the private sector we can find solutions. I just found out yesterday that they're trying to make hydrogen fuel. There's 3 types of fuel. Fuel is something you can put in a bottle. It's either hydrogen, carbon, or plutonium. Those are the only types of fuel on Earth that we know of. We've had a hard time figuring out how to make hydrogen fuel because it's so expensive to make. Creates a lot of carbon dioxide. Well, now they hit plastic with lasers and they make hydrogen fuel and they produce all this graphene as byproduct that they can sell. You actually make money to produce hydrogen fuel. You're making $4.50 for every kilogram of hydrogen fuel you're producing. So we can become a hydrogen manufacturing production facility.
That's great, but it doesn't change the fact that a bunch of communists are taking
It
over.
lowers energy costs, which lowers the pressure on the people, on the civilianry. When the civilianry can get together and focus, we can protect ourselves and prevent this nonsense.
Well, I actually think that would make people more docile and accepting of the communist revolution.
Oh, I think that street violence would make them more, because what if you have the dialectic? You want a oppressor and oppressed. You want a villain and a hero, and then people want to join a side, and that's how the communists want to win, is by bifurcating.
So the issue right now for the U.S. is that you have this extreme level of violence and political instability, but people are still fat, and I mean that figuratively and literally. So they're kind of like, look, man, I'm not going to rock the boat because my paycheck comes in and there's food on the counter. So if you're simplifying and producing cleaner and better energy, then you lower the likelihood of instability and increase the likelihood that the revolutionaries take over.
You think that stability makes it more likely for a revolution? I think
Instability.
The more stable we can make it, the less likely there will be a communist takeover. So
no.
cheaper energy will make it more stable.
No. The communist takeover is happening through the institutions.
But it's happening by people saying black people and white people, they're trying to get us to fight each other.
And even though we are not.
And poor people and rich people, basically, that's a big one. Poor people and rich people, like politicians and non-politicians.
Things are improving in this country greatly and have been improving considerably over the past several decades. So the far left extremists start getting jobs in institutions and firing anyone who disagrees with their ideology. If there's a breakdown in the system in terms of food, shelter, water, healthcare, etc., then that stops because it goes to chaos. That could theoretically benefit a communist revolution, or it could hinder it because multiple factions can end up fighting. But right now, you have all of these people who are gaining control of institutions. I think just creating a wonder energy or whatever is going to make people be like, I'm going to let them do whatever they want because I get good stuff.
I don't think so. Only because what's happening is this wealth gap we've seen the consolidation of wealth to the top 0.001% or whatever. It's creating this like the people at the bottom. That's the breeding grounds for a revolution, is when you have people that can't afford food. So if we can make, yes, there's still going to be a wealth gap, but the poorest among us will still be very wealthy relative because they have free energy or super, super cheap electricity.
How different do you guys think this would be if the economy was ripping right now? If Biden was actually ripping in the economy, like, how do you think people would feel? Like, with all this stuff going on with Trump, if people were eating well and they had the same stocks that they had with Trump, do you think everybody would be like as in on all like the?
Nope. They'd be saying, So Trump supporters would be exactly where they are, but you'd have more moderate, middle of the road people saying things like, "You guys are crazy. It's better than ever. You need to let it go." Blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And so why if you're Biden, why don't you just keep on with that? He's been in politics for this
Because
long.
he can't.
Because he doesn't know how.
They're completely incompetent, incapable. And I don't look. Honestly, I have no idea.
They just acknowledge they're going to start pulling carbon dioxide out of the air.
They've got so many activists in there. It's insane that he's been in politics for 50 years. I guess he's out of his mind. Like he's basically an old man with dementia at this point. But like, how do you just completely see like the economy is the number one thing in America that people universally helps everyone. Like as long as the economy's high, no matter who you are, whether it trickles all the way down. I mean, I know we have a huge wealth gap problem. But why don't you focus on that? I guess they're trying to switch our economy over to green stuff. I guess that might be long-term something they think is going to be beneficial. But so many people love Trump because they had more money in their wallets than they had previously.
I think they want the grid decentralized. I think the real reason for climate change stuff is, one, it's a means of control to manipulate people into implementing policies that decentralize the U.S. electrical grid.
Yeah, and that's not a bad goal to make the electrical grid more resilient. I think that's a noble goal. Shutting
But it's
down coal
expensive.
plants isn't the right move.
It's expensive and the return is worse. So if you go to the American people and say, we're concerned about war, we're concerned about conflict and natural disasters, so we want to implement programs that will incentivize decentralizing the electrical grid, people are going to be like, I'm fine with coal, buzz off. So they go, the end is nigh. Okay, now you have to do it.
The one thing for me, I'm not even like wholly against green energy, and I don't like that word. I hate hearing it because I feel like every person I've ever talked to that was affiliated with some kind of grifter. When you see where the money goes, like bring Podesta in to be the guy, and letting him be in control of the money after Obama literally wouldn't let this guy touch any like energy, that one energy deal of Hansberg Weiss back when he was in office. And you're gonna bring him back. He's like Weiss's best friend or whatever. You're gonna bring him back to give him $386 million to dole out whenever that was. I don't know what green bill that was. That was a while ago. Like, how are we gonna trust you to be like for our future if you're just gonna give it to grifters and like have that money? Where is it gonna go? Like, it's gonna go to that other guy, that foreign guy's pocket.
Yeah, it's like laundering and stuff. We need a psychological. I hate using this word revolution over and over. We need scientists in public office, in the White House and in Congress. We need more scientists that understand the technical revolution that we're on right now with free software, graphene, hydrogen power, fusion, things like that. Things that you can, fusion, I guess you get to a point, if you can't control the energy supply, then maybe that might become a problem.
Dude, I would just take some reasonable people. Like, we have plenty of scientists. We just need reasonable people in office that are willing to listen to people that have a slightly different opinion than like the, whatever the party line is. Because we literally just need reasonable people. But the problem is a lot of reasonable people won't decide to be in politics.
We also need to learn how to upscale coal and oil, because the oil industry has so much influence over our government. So we need to learn how to, oil's pretty cool, reuse it when we burn it, and turn coal into graphene to make it burn cleaner, reuse it. So it's not like we're going to stop. We shouldn't go at those guys. We really need to use the carbon. The carbon's super, super important.
Yeah, I agree.
What else would you want to see different? Like, I understand the reasonable people argument in politics. Like, yes, it would be nice to have reasonable people, but I think part of politics, or just generally trying to get information to lots of people, is you have to have someone who can sell it. That's one of the arguments against any kind of economic program or any kind of environmental issue, is that no one can package it that well because the average attention span is so short, and that's actually not unreasonable.
That was my old job. I was a comms director on the Hill. Like, we couldn't relay to your voters to the most people as possible. You have to do simple messaging, not necessarily, speaking ill about any of it. And this is both sides. You have to find what will resonate for not just the person that graduated from high school, graduated from college, went Ivy League. You got to make sure that every person, no matter their education level, has a good idea of what you're trying to sell, like what you're saying to them, what you bring to the table versus someone else. And it oversimplifies stuff. It makes people that's why you have build the wall. Was build the wall a thing? Yeah, you want to build the wall, but there's a host of policies surrounding that. Like defund the police. Is defund the police a thing? Yeah, but there's a host of policies that go around in that. But it's way easier to say defund the police or build the wall.
You need a catchphrase.
We need a great
got
project.
some news. The DA's office is going to be holding a press conference after the indictments are processed by the clerk's office. This could take between 1 and 3 hours. So we'll be long in bed by then, but so I guess come the morning we're gonna figure out exactly what's going on. It may not be indictments for Trump. Apparently they didn't say these were indictments for Trump, and the Trump indictments listed 13 charges. But I don't know what that means. Could it mean that they're planning on indicting co-conspirators, Trump's lawyers, Sidney Powell, perhaps Rudy Giuliani?
Or could it be Trump, but they didn't indict him on three of the 13 charges, and it's still 10.
The reason these charges may have been filed is because they already returned Trump's indictments, but the grand jury is actually looking at multiple people. Maybe I don't know if it's possible.
Maybe it'll come up while we're on the after show, and we'll see it in real time. Maybe it'll happen after. We're about to go to super chats. I just want to kind of echo what you're saying, that we need a great works project. We need something that we can all focus on and build together as a society. It was the wall. Trump said, let's build a wall. Everyone's like, yeah, I want to build a space elevator. I want to build graphene tethered space elevator with 60 different elevators up and down so we can make space travel. If we can galvanize our culture to focus on a great work, on a great, like a gigantic, like the Notre Dame Cathedral, or like
that's scary, because you think like that's the climate change thing, like we're saving the world. Like that's like you have certain groups of people that use that same kind of mentality, that one world, so that one government system, and that's where people get scared. And now, especially on our side, we have people that are always going to be like scared of stuff like that, which is what the difficulty I find. Like even just think about how am I going to message this to make everybody in America, come to a realization that like we're all the same people, like we want the same things. There's really serious problems like that we should address.
We start 3D printing houses, and I think that technology is available right now. They're doing it in China quite frequently, and that would help solve a lot of problems. One of them including homelessness. Let's start 3D printing houses.
We're going to go to Super Chats. If you haven't already, would you kindly smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, and share the show. Take that URL, post it wherever you can. It really does help. Share with all your friends. We're going to have a members only uncensored show coming up at 10 p.m. So go to timcast.com, click join us, and we would love to hear from you. But for now, we're going to read your Super Chats. I'm not your guy, friend, says, did I make it? LOL. Also, I wouldn't be surprised if they tried to Ecuador Trump. They are so desperate. You did make it, but only because our good friend, I'm not your buddy guy, is no longer posting because he says work is picking up. So you are now the first poster. Congratulations, South Park meme guy. Waffle Sensei says, I feel like the internet is showing that the revolution will in fact be televised in a certain respect. I know it's cliche, but I kind of get the whole, this is the last election argument. I don't know if the will to fight will be there after this. Will to fight isn't the thing, I don't think. I think that's a misconception. This idea, again, that a bunch of people meet behind a podium and bang a gavel and say, we hereby declare. Like, that's just not reality. Reality is nobody has a will to fight until they're backed into a corner, and then all of a sudden they're fighting, and that's it. Clearly, the people raiding Nordstrom and Nike stores have a will to fight. So someone's going to back someone else into a corner, and a fight's going to break out. Let's read some more Super Chats. Mike E. says, with young men more conservative, I'm afraid it won't be long before the establishment escalates things in Europe and ships those young men off to war. That's one way to get rid of them.
Yeah.
Draft them all. And then, whoops.
Except for the rich kids, they get deferments because of bone spurs.
Yep.
That's what happened in Vietnam. It was disgusting.
Kenneth Hart says, saw your coffee ad. You guys should totally do an ad in the style of Evil Dead 2. Seamus can be the one in the basement, brewed by Dawn, LOL. One of the ideas we had now was, because everyone keeps asking, what would have happened to Ian if he didn't drink the coffee? And we were like, maybe someone runs from Roberto Jr. and then either doesn't get the coffee made in time, or they like fumble the beans and drop them on the floor, and they're like, no. And then when Roberto Jr. comes, like, I'm making it. But it's too late. And then it just shows them screaming and backing into a corner and cowering. And then it heavily insinuates, you see like the shadow of the rooster pecking and blood splattering, all in silhouette.
I wonder if we could start the next commercial at the end of the last commercial. I'm like waking up from a dream of the last commercial, and it's like, and then the rooster appears again, and I'm like, but I don't have the coffee on this one.
No. The next one needs to be, you walk into a room holding the thing of coffee, and your eyes are glowing. You say, hello, friends. You should try Cast Brew coffee. Tastes good. And everyone's like, oh, thanks, Ian. This is really great. Wow, that was really nice of you. And then they drink it and all their eyes glow.
Yeah.
And then they're like, this is good
That's
coffee.
a good one.
I have to say, I am actually drinking this coffee, or I did drink this coffee, and it's pretty good.
It's really good. I was like, at first, I'm going to be honest with everybody, the Appalachian Nights is so good, I've been chugging it. And I was thinking to myself, maybe it's because I'm getting fresh coffee, because we make it fresh, we ship them out in small, we make them in small batches. And I was like, it can't be that good, can it? And I got to be completely honest. So then I had some of the French roast, and I was like, oh, it's okay. And I was like, wow, like the Appalachian Nights is just really good. The French roast is just French roast. I was like, it's French roast. It's okay. It's coffee. But man, Stand Your Grounds, Roberto Jr. and Appalachian Nights, like all of them, I just think, I'm like, man, these are amazing. Those are blends though, and the French roast is like a regular French roast, so could be it.
I don't know enough about coffee to know the difference.
Coffee's such a wild thing.
Light roast has a more fruity flavor. The beans they're less roasted, so you get more of the beans' actual flavor. Dark roast is more earthy because it's darker. And then medium is obviously medium.
Is French, does that mean it's actually from France?
I don't know. No,
you mean
French
it's dark
roast is a
roasted?
style of a very, very dark roast. So it kind of nukes a lot of the coffee flavor. So Appalachian Nights is a very robust dark roast, but it's got a deep, like, chocolatey flavor. I'm going to stop ranting about Cast Brew coffee. But
You guys all know
I'm
what to get Tim for Christmas.
just buy my coffee. Darren Middleton says, hello, Timcast. I've purchased my Rise with Roberto Jr. coffee beans. I'm in Australia, and I'll tell you what I think of your beans. Rip Roberto Jr. It was supposed to be him in the commercial, but his feet were covered with crap. And so Kim tried to wash his feet, as she's done multiple times for many of the chickens, and Roberto Jr. croaked. Literally went, "Rah," and then he just died.
He died suddenly.
Yeah, he just died
how
suddenly.
old was the rooster?
He's like 2.
Damn.
And then we just found out that one of his sisters died.
Oh, no.
I got to be honest.
Sadness?
These were the first fertilized eggs that we got, that we incubated, and we assumed them to be a weak batch.
Yeah. And we were still pretty fresh about how to raise chickens from eggs. Like, don't take the lid off ever. I don't know if we did it
all
right.
that. We did all that right. We had 3 eggs in the incubator with Roberto and his sisters, and one of them died. So
Slightly,
they're chickens, man. Like, this is chicken life.
Yeah.
slightly on topic. Are we shipping to Canada?
I do believe there is international shipping. Okay. I'm assuming it's launched. Someone said they purchased there
If
in
he's got it
Australia.
in Australia, that's hot.
Yeah. Right. Let's grab some more super chats. Alessio Demonte says 2024 is going to be wild. Rising cost of living everywhere, biased DOJ, no border control. New York City and Chicago residents want immigrants out. Last but not least, Biden sending out a total of $250 billion to Ukraine to fight Russia.
Yep.
Oh boy.
All I got to say to that is
gearing up.
no comment. Did you see Biden went down there? Like, what do you think about what's happening in Mali? No comment. Dude, no comment is a comment.
It's crazy
Right.
he couldn't even manage a, like, this is very sad, like, we're praying for
seriously.
whoever. Like,
Seriously.
no comment is his response.
He didn't care.
Because he
just does
doesn't
not
know
care.
what he's talking about because he's not there.
He's tripped over so much stuff. They've told him not to speak, and like
Yeah.
he's just
Yeah,
completely out.
totally. Yeah, that's what I thought too.
Paul Tascalos says, I'm a lawyer. In 2015, I represented an Iranian-American man indicted for selling microelectronics to Iran to build a nuclear missile. Wow. What happened to Trump today is the most terrifying thing I've seen in our legal system. Wow. Crazy.
Assumedly to Trump. We'll find out.
The Pippin Viking says, y'all should have Brandon Herrera on. Just launched his campaign for Congress in Texas, District 23.
Oh wow.
Sounds good. We'll look into it. Cam Girl Asuna says, Tim, given the current overt cheating being perpetrated, do you find the claims of 2020 cheating and ballot fraud to be more or less plausible? Not asking if it did, but if current acts make it seem more or less likely. It makes it seem less likely. This is the point. The way they cheat is exactly like what they're doing now. The governor changed the voting rules, benefiting Democrats. The legislature in Pennsylvania and the courts changed the rules, benefiting Democrats. They did not need ballot fraud and fake ballots and Chinese ballots or any of that stuff. All they needed to do was put a bunch of rocks on the scales in favor of Democrats. What I think they loved was that immediately Mike Lindell, Sidney Powell, Giuliani, Trump came out with the most outlandish and insane conspiracies, thus stopping anyone from figuring out what they actually did until they published an article titled The Shadow Campaign That Saved the Election. And they explained what they did with voting in the park and ballot harvesting and ballot chasing. And then it's like, now don't get me wrong. Obviously, we know about there was a couple hundred to a few thousand, depending on your source, duplicated ballots in Georgia. Those were reportedly removed because they were found out by a watchdog. I think that any good plan to manipulate someone needs a red herring. The fact that there was talk of Dominion voting systems and all of this stuff was the perfect distraction that threw Republicans, Trump supporters off base and had them saying really dumb things. And then they were chasing the wrong things. Now, I also want to add this too. None of the lawsuits actually ever got heard.
Yeah,
all the lawsuits were thrown out on standing. So it's like,
I don't know if they were actually chasing a dumb thing or if they were just making, I think they were making claims without evidence. That's the biggest problem. Whether or not they're chasing that there was malfeasance on proprietary voting machines in secret, like, okay, seek it out, find out, let's find out, but don't claim that it is if you don't have the evidence.
But the lawsuits were thrown out on standing. They never even heard the evidence. So there were a whole bunch of suspect things that were obvious and apparent. There's the with Fulton County in the news, there were duplicate ballots. There were ballots that were scanned more than once. And then they got removed because a watchdog group said, hey, look, we found these. This made Trump and many others think, hey, we better do a check on these other systems because if they only check this one, it could be the case in other places. That is entirely possible. But I think the reality is ballot harvesting, ballot chasing, the executives changing the rules in violation of the Constitution because the state legislatures ultimately had final say. And then Mike Pence what should have happened is Mike Pence should have said, lawsuits have not been heard. And so these ballots are being sent back. He should have done that. And he didn't. And he called it a crackpot legal theory. And then, oopsie, he went on TV and admitted he had the authority to send back votes and push the vote to the House of Representatives. And all these mainstream news outlets were talking about it, that it would go to House delegations to vote on who the president would be, considering Mike Pence said state legislatures have not approved of the way in which the vote was held. More importantly, there were 48 states involved in a lawsuit over whether or not what I think Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Georgia, and a few other states did was legal. And that got thrown out. I don't know if that was standing, but it's called original jurisdiction, and it goes to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said, we will not hear this case. So it was never even heard. My point is simply this. Impropriety happens in every election. To the degree, I suppose is the argument. A lot of people are like, Trump only lost because of fraud. And I'm like, I think Trump lost because they changed the rules to benefit themselves, exploited those rule changes, and then got a bunch of people locked in their houses to vote. And that's what did it. I don't think you need to duplicate ballots to beat Trump. So they're like 81 million votes. Okay, let's say 1 million were duplicates. Let's say 1 million were fake. They still had 6 million more votes. Why? They locked everyone in their house, told them they couldn't leave, killed elderly people in nursing homes, sent ballot chasers to the homes of the people who are locked inside and said, it's Trump's fault, sign this, and it'll all go away. I think that really is rather simple. How many elderly people were killed with the COVID policies when they put COVID patients into nursing homes for no reason?
A lot.
New York was wild.
How many
New
people had
York,
their lungs crushed with
Pennsylvania,
ventilators?
California did it.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I'm not saying any of that was intentional. I'm saying it had an impact.
And Cuomo kind of got off with that completely. Like nobody gave Cuomo that hard a time about in New York with all those nursing home deaths. Yeah. I feel like that was something that he kind of really, I mean, you know, the sexual assault thing comes into play and all of a sudden that's the biggest thing in the news. Like the sexual, whatever it was. I don't know if he actually had a sexual assault, but he had like a
Sexual misconduct allegations, I think they end up calling it.
Steve McGee says, Ian, we need a weigh-in.
139.
You went down?
Yeah. I was traveling this last week and I was on the road for like 20 hours, so I didn't get to eat my 2,800 calories. I was putting in like 17 or 1,800 all 3 of those days. And my creatine hasn't been, I've upped my creatine to, I think, 10 grams a day now, but I wasn't doing 10 grams every day.
Up that water.
And I wasn't working out because I was in the airport. Yeah. But I was at 150, but then it went back down to 144. And then I'm down
150.
to like, yeah, I was at 150 a couple weeks ago for one night, and then it was back to 144 the next day. So like water weight, big, huge dump, constant dump. And but it stayed at about 139 for like 4 or 5 days, all weekend. I expected to come back and weigh in at like 134, 136, but it was still 139. I think it was 140 before I came up here earlier after I did a protein shake.
How do you feel?
I feel really good. I do not want to stuff myself, but that's like, they're like, stuff yourself. I'm like, oh, I just like this like slow push towards gaining weight, but we're doing it a little bit faster than I'm comfortable with.
I bought this protein powder. It's like, I've heard it's called Gold Standard or something. I got no beef, but they got Splenda in it. Sucralose. And so I buy it. I'm drinking it and I'm like, kind of sweet, right? There's no sugar in it. And I look and sucralose is one of the ingredients and I'm like, right in the garbage.
Yep.
And then I looked up, I searched protein powder, no sucralose, and Jocko, I think it's called Mjolk. How do you pronounce the O with the umlaut? Is it Mjo? I don't know.
His last name? Is that what you're saying?
Jocko?
No, it's called Jocko, and then it's called Mjolk. It's Jocko's protein powder, and it's got monk fruit extract instead.
Oh, wow.
It is the most delicious protein powder I've ever had.
Yeah, dude.
No questions asked. Like,
that's cool.
I'm blown away. Jocko's protein.
Oh, I want to try some of that.
Yeah, is that how you pronounce it? Mjolk? Mulk?
I think so.
Mulk?
O is like O with an umlaut, I think.
Is that how you say it?
I'm good on the protein over here, so I'll let you guys do that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really good. Shout out to Jocko for his protein powder.
Oh, there's all sorts of flavors. Mint chocolate, banana.
No, mint gross.
Strawberry.
Chocolate peanut butter is really good. The vanilla is really good. And there's no sucralose in it. It's like very few
Is
ingredients.
it whey protein? What
Yeah,
is it?
I'm pretty sure it's whey protein. It's got monk fruit extract, and I was very impressed.
It's whey protein concentrate, whey protein isolate, egg, albumin, and micellar casein.
And probiotics.
Oh wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Cocoa
Very
powder.
amazing.
This looks good.
Did y'all see the this like Diet Coke? It came out like the aspartame thing that we all knew about Diet Coke. They finally like admitted to it like what was it, a month or two ago?
Links to cancer.
Yeah, they're just terrible for you, and like nobody cares.
Dude.
But everybody drinks Diet Coke.
I don't think that stuff.
The
that's
story
nasty.
of Searle
Trump does.
and Donald Rumsfeld and Diet Coke and aspartame becoming legal is horrendous. You got to look into it.
Yep.
All right. Matthew Witham says, "You fools keep saying Trump 24 when he lost last time. He's older and much more damaged now. What's the difference? Who are you voting for?"
Trump.
Vivek. I'll vote for Vivek.
Yeah, I'm gonna vote for
Man,
Vivek.
Vivek is just he's hitting he's hitting out of the park every time.
Yeah.
Right? It's just he's nailing it.
I don't agree with everybody. I don't agree with Vivek on. I'm sorry to interrupt. What were you gonna say?
I was gonna say I thought his ceiling was Fox Business host, but I feel like now he's really picked up. Like I thought this was all gonna be, like a big because with these guys, they come into the elections, they're not actually serious, and all of a sudden, people really, really like this guy. He's above polling above DeSantis now. Like he's like a real I'm not gonna say a contender. Trump's still like 45% or whatever it is high, but. Like Vivek is gonna be there to stay.
What I think is I don't like everything about everybody. There's no one that I like everything about what they say. I don't agree with everything someone says. Nobody, and I don't agree with everything Vivek says. And I go hard to the paint with that guy about debates if I got it. But he's the guy. He's the brilliant young man that I want in the office right now.
I don't know. I like Vivek a lot. There's some stuff that I just like don't agree with him on. Like a lot of it comes down to immigration. I think there should be more restriction on legal immigration as well as illegal. But I'm glad that he is in the conversation. I think he's doing a lot for the Republican Party just by breathing new life into it. I would, there was so much infighting with just the DeSantis Trump team. There still is, obviously, that at a certain point you just are halting any sort of progress forward. So he's doing all of us a favor, even if he's not exactly who I would pick.
It's nice to have billionaires or multimillionaires doing it so they don't have to raise money. Like the whole DeSantis pandering for money thing was really pathetic. I like guys that just self-made.
And he was supposed to be the guy that was getting all the donors too. Trump, that people were supposed to be afraid of Trump, and so DeSantis was going to get all the big money donors, but it still looks like it's not taking. Like you're still third. Like Vivek,
You're not a DeSantis person?
I mean, I thought he was the future. And he's just not the person that, like, Trump's the ultimate personality. And I think part of it, and people don't understand, like, Trump was on TV for so long. So many Americans know him so well. And you can't just be DeSantis and come in and not be personable.
I can summarize it very simply. Ron DeSantis, his campaign explicitly told their people not to come on this show. Vivek Ramaswamy has been on Timcast IRL twice.
Dude, he came on when you weren't even here.
Once when I was not even here.
He's on Shimcast.
He was on Shimcast. And he came on the Culture War for a one-on-one conversation that was really, really great. He doesn't shy away from conversations. He'll allow people to ask him challenging questions, and he'll answer them very quickly. Ron DeSantis' campaign cowers in fear and just flame wars on Twitter. It's just, wow.
It's night and
It's
day.
embarrassing.
It's crazy. He's doing a great job in Florida, but campaign-wise, they're just like walking out into a field and farting.
Did you
It's
feel
crazy.
like his change in staffing was going to help at all? He has a new chief of staff or something, right?
I know. I said great. It's good that he did it, but nah.
Well, it's
it's
interesting.
I don't know if that dude can
little
recover
too
at
late.
this point.
They,
It's
like-
remarkable.
His campaign manager was this woman. They fired her, but they didn't fire her from the campaign. I think they just fired her from being the campaign manager.
Right.
So how do you keep that person on? Like and everything's tanking like that. Just I don't know.
Well,
that
there
seems
is
like undermining.
one of the controversies that was in the news was that he fired Will Chamberlain. Will's a friend of the show and one of my friends, and they fired him, and then his governor's office hired them, and so that was a huge scandal because I don't think anyone really cares that much, but they were like a lot of people immediately pointed out. Trump supporters pointed it out. You basically have someone who's living in D.C. now working for the Florida governor through their Florida governor's office, but they live and work in D.C. So what the argument was, he was using Florida taxpayer dollars to pay the salary of a communications expert in D.C. for his political campaign.
That's a bad look.
Well, it's a bad look. I'm not going to, I don't want to be biased because I'm friends with Will, but that's what the media reported. I don't know what to say about it.
Well,
Let's grab, we'll grab some more super chats here. Rudy Casone says, if my memory is right, only about a third of the American population supported the revolution. I believe it's actually more than that. There was a letter written where, I can't remember who said this, they said a third supports it, a third opposes it, and a third doesn't care. But that wasn't a legitimate poll. It was just like an opinion statement. I think it was actually closer to half, but not over half. I think it was all, and like opposition was only like 20%, support was like 39 to 40%, and then don't care was the remainder. I think don't care was bigger than opposition. Let's see.
I wonder if they polled like 500 people and then they extrapolated it to 5 million. Sorry, interrupting.
Dabo DeZaffa says Oliver Anthony's Rich Men North of Richmond is not a song, but rather an anthem. It's a great song. I dig it. And he lives super close. He's not that far away, a couple hours. But I love how the left is responding to this, saying that he's an industry plant, that he's complaining about welfare.
It's the best.
Yeah, and it's just like, I remember when the left used to sing about the oppression of the working class.
Right. Yeah.
But now they're just cheering on
Neil Young, man.
Amazon and Walmart.
Yeah.
Creedence
Like
Clearwater,
Spotify.
dude. That's like, bring it back.
Yes.
Yeah, I remember when the song was some folks are born made to wave the flag, and it's like a song talking about how when the draft comes, you've got these wealthy individuals who can dodge it. I'm not a senator's son. Now these are the people cheering for war in Ukraine.
Yeah. It's wild.
Crazy turn of events. You know what I mean?
I can't wait for that New York Times hit piece on that guy.
Yeah,
Random dude that just made one popular song in the middle of nowhere,
Right.
and they're gonna send a liberal reporter to go try to ruin his life.
Dude, he's a factory worker, and people are calling him an industry plant. I'm like, that's
No, I don't
not
think you-
how that word works. That's not what that means.
I think they're just jealous of his glorious beard.
Yeah.
It's got like the most intense ginger beard I've ever seen.
Yeah, it's so incredibly orange.
Yeah.
Triton54 says, raising my glass to Jeremy Hamley tonight. He unexpectedly lost his father this morning. I'm sure he'd appreciate a kind word. Sorry to hear it, Jeremy. I hope everything beyond this is okay. I hope you're doing all right, and I hope I hope for the best.
Yeah, let me know if you need anything, man. I love you, man.
Where are we at? Norin Blithers says, hey, Timcast IRL, can you put in a word to YouTube to cough up the 100K plaque to my favorite female YouTuber at The Crimson Cure? It would mean a lot. Thanks. I can say that. There's not much else I can do. Not like YouTube's got a hotline I can call. But there you go. Maybe someone at YouTube heard me read that. I do know that there's people at YouTube who do watch the show every night.
How frequently do you get the plaque? Once you hit the number, what's the delay on getting the plaque? Because you've done it multiple times. You're the only expert in the room. Or maybe you've gotten one. I don't know.
So here's how it works, because I'm I'll just say I'm a little crafty. Huh? The first time I hit 100K, nothing happened. And I was like, so what's supposed to happen? How do I get the silver medal or whatever, silver award? Several months later, like 6 or 7 months later, a drop-down bar appeared and it said, congratulations on reaching 100,000 subs. Click here to get your award, which brings you to a portal for a website. They give you a code. You put in that code, and it allows you to claim your plaque. It says, what's your channel? What's your code? And then you submit. The next time I hit 100K, I did not get the drop-down. Several months went by. So what I did was I went and found the URL from the last time I had logged in, used the old code, and then when it asked me for my channel name, put in my other channel name, and it worked.
Interesting.
And I'm telling you too, that's what I did. Because I guess the company then checked the YouTube channel, connected it, and said it does have 100,000 subs. It does qualify. And then I did that again for all the rest. But
you have like one Lincoln code?
We actually got 2 gold plaques for one of the channels.
Dude, I want some brand notoriety with you guys at YouTube. We got to do like a YouTube Timcast event.
Yeah, I doubt that.
Yeah, we just blast
That
it
would
up.
be the coolest thing. But
we used to do YouTube stuff all the time, man. YouTube events, YouTube Live.
Yeah,
I would love to do
YouTube
something
doesn't
like
want to
that.
acknowledge
They
this.
I think you guys might.
They had, I think,
be underselling it.
Libertarian Party candidate on with Phil DeFranco in 2012 or something like that, because they were like, we want to challenge the system, and now they're
dude, because like
corporate garbage.
Rumble's all about branding their people, and I'm not saying we're gonna wear YouTube hats, but it'd be cool to do a YouTube event.
Yeah.
Stephen says, Ian, in both Hebrew and Greek, the word for justice includes mercy. Only in Latin did justice equal vengeance. Interesting.
That is very interesting.
Jason Hutchinson says, we're in an age of reality denial. Up is down, down is up. People get money for nothing, stolen from people that create. Like the gods of the copybook headings, the longer we deny reality, the greater the terror and slaughter when reality returns.
Yeah.
Let's grab a couple more. Wolfsbane 93 says, shout out for Brandon Herrera running it for District 23 in Texas. Shout out. Gabriel Lopez says, nukes are fake. The Japan ones were just tons of TNT. The cities there right now are radiation free and built better than American cities. A Democrat governor does more damage than that. Haha. But I don't think the nukes were fake because we've blown up many of them. There's videos, and I don't think TNT can do all of that. But you need to understand radiation is a choice. I was reading about nukes. I did a video for Discovery. You can watch it. It's called I forgot what it's called. How powerful are nuclear weapons or something. Got like 1 million views overnight. It was a big video. We did a bunch of research on it, and I learned that the reason there's radiation in a nuclear explosion is because they want there to be for long-lasting damage.
Yeah,
So it's possible to have nukes without it.
Aren't there nukes now that don't have it or something like that?
There's always been.
Oh, really?
Yeah, always been. There's like nuclear bombs that have almost no radiation and a massive incendiary wave. Like, they've built crazy stuff.
Just like the super soldiers in the basement.
Perhaps.
mountains
Yeah,
of Colorado.
someone did point out, I missed the super chat, but they did point out that the U.S. literally did have a super soldier program. They tried to create psychic soldiers.
Oh, like they don't still.
No, that's the point.
They do.
They had the men who stare at goats.
I hope they do.
And they also, they were trying to create psychic soldiers.
Oh, I'm so into that, you guys. I can come help.
like-
I can train your psychics.
They did MK Ultra, the men who stare at goats. It's like, come on. You know that there's another program where they're trying to do something else they're not telling us
I
about.
was gonna say earlier, like there's a reason they failed the audit. You know, there's a reason.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the craziest that video. Who was that with? Was that Bill Mayer that was talking to the
Bill Maher, he's talked about it numerous times. I
Yeah,
think.
that was one of the like. She's like, I don't know where it is. Like he's like,
Yeah,
you're the
they know.
accountant of the like.
Yeah, they know.
El Commodi says, speaking of aspartame, I'm seeing YouTube ads promoting aspartame is safe. Oh, that is laughable.
Wow.
No way.
I'm not a doctor though. I don't know. I just don't drink the garbage. All right, everybody. I try to stay away from things that aren't food. So that's why when I found out there was sucralose in my, which is basically Splenda, was in my protein powder, I was like, I am not going to drink this. And then when I looked up Jocko's Mulk, I guess is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah. Anyone?
Yeah.
Mulk.
I don't know how to pronounce
Mulk.
it. Oh, with the
Yeah.
Mulk.
It's funny.
When I looked it up and the ingredients are very simple, I was like, that's legit. But I think you, Ian, you're actually just drinking straight whey.
Yeah, Naked Way.
Nothing
is the
else in
company
it.
name.
It's
That's
literally just
that's
whey.
my main one. Then I have this bulk fattening one where they really want me to. It has tons of crap in it, but the other one is just pure Naked Way. I love that stuff.
Ian's agreed to eat a pint of Ben and Jerry's every night
That's
before
not
the
true.
final shoot.
Fake news. No, I did not along with you when you were saying to do it. Tim suggested
nodded
I do
along.
that the 4
I was
days
like,
before the final
Eat a
shoot.
pint of Ben and Jerry's every night before the shoot.
There'll be a better fat. Like maybe I'll just eat sour cream. I'll just eat loads of it, like for a couple days.
That sounds so much worse.
That does sound
that's probably way better to be completely honest. Yeah, why not? What's a good avocado and sour cream?
Yeah, that sounds awesome. Put
And-
some like paprika on it and some salt. That sounds hot.
and just eat a thing of sour cream.
Hell yeah, dude. With some shredded
I don't
beef.
like sour cream though, so this just sounds horrible to me.
love it.
I probably eat like a cupful of sour cream with every fajita dinner I do.
Really? Oh.
Yeah. But I also do like a 1/4 cup of heavy whipping cream for breakfast. That's all I have. I don't have a full breakfast. I just have heavy cream in my coffee. And then I eat dinner. That's it.
You know, I ate a couple pieces of cheesecake when we went out to dinner a couple weeks ago, and then that did increase my appetite, putting that sugar in my stomach.
Sugar will do it. Yeah. What, I think it was Andrew WK. I could be wrong.
Party hard?
Yeah. He said, if you want to gain weight, because a lot of people struggle with it, you eat something salty. And then after a little while, you'll crave something sweet, eat something sweet. Then after a little while, you'll crave something salty, and you go back and forth, and you'll bulk up real quick. But not necessarily in the good way. All right, everybody, if you haven't already, would you kindly smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, share the show with your friends, but more importantly, become a member at timcast.com by clicking Join Us to support our work directly. If you like the work that we're doing, we really could use your support, and you will get access to the Uncensored show, which is coming up in just a few minutes. You don't want to miss it. Uncensored. And you can even submit questions and call in and talk to us and our guests. You can follow the show at Timcast IRL everywhere. Follow us on Instagram. We post clips. You can follow me personally at Timcast. Follow me on Twitter right now. I pinned the Cast Brew commercial at the top of my page, which will soon be running everywhere. And we need you guys to tell us in Discord what TV channels we should run this commercial on. And again, smash the like button. J.W. Gibbons, you want to shout anything out?
Yeah, please like and subscribe. Manverse Street on YouTube. We do a bunch of different content. We ask people about a variety of different things. We ask people if they would date transgenders. We've asked people if they want to have kids, young girls if they want to have kids. We'll ask a variety of questions. We'll keep asking them until we get the right answers, which might not be for a very long time. So we're gonna need your support. Thank you.
One last thing, we do ship Cask Brew internationally now. You can go to caskbrew.com. It will go international.
That's cool. That's awesome. I'm Hannah Claire Brimlow. I'm a writer for Timcast.com. You should follow at Timcast News on Twitter and Instagram. You can see work from me and all of our other journalists, including Chris Bertman and Adrian Norman, who are great. If you want to follow me personally, you can find me on Instagram at hannahclaire.b and on Twitter at HCBrimlow. Thank you so much.
I'm Ian Crossland. You guys have a great night. Joel, it's good to see you, man. Good to meet.
Good to meet you too.
Good talking. And people are going to follow you on Twitter, or on X rather, at Joel W. Gibbons V.
That's me.
Also, I wanted to answer Tom L. You asked if I was wearing shoulder pads. You are correct, sir. They are built into this corduroy jacket. And for final, you've heard of PFAS, PFAS, per polyfluoroalkyl substances. They call them forever chemicals. About 6 months ago or 5 months ago, there was a scare, and they're like, we're all going to die. PFAS, it's everywhere. They're there forever. Well, they figured out how to remediate them out of the soil by pulsing soil with lasers, flashing it into graphene. You can actually withdraw the toxins, reintroduce the graphene back into the ground, and it functions as California soil. California says it's good soil when you do that. So we're good. Catch you later.
Sweet. That's cool. My name is Serge.com on the internet. Argue with me on Twitter. It'd be great. I will see you guys in the after show. Let's do this.
We will see you all over at timcast.com. Thanks for hanging out.